Greetings, friends, and welcome to the episode of How to Wrestling, the world's first podcast detailing how to wrestling, how to get into wrestling, how to understand wrestling, and goodness, maybe even how to enjoy wrestling. Hello, once again, we are back. It's me, your old pal, Father Kevin, and joined as I am by my better half, the ever curious, the ever learning. It's Joe Graham.
Hello.
Joe, it's been a minute here on the main feed since our last release.
Yeah, and it feels even longer because the last episode was the NWO.
Yes.
So we didn't do any matches. And researching for this episode has felt really, it's like, oh God, I have to relearn how to do everything again.
Yeah, it's a different type of episode. We didn't watch, in this case, hundreds of hours of WCW Nitro.
Yeah.
Instead, we watched dozens of hours of NXT Season 3.
Yeah.
Today's episode is all about one of the most popular women to ever grace the WWE and the world of wrestling in the last 20 years. We're talking about the phenomenally talented and extremely interesting AJ Lee, who I think is got to be... Like, honestly, in terms of people who've been like, someone's been requested, but someone who is like beloved, as high up on that list as you could possibly be. Yeah. And this is an episode that I think we have been very excited about. We've been kind of planning to do it for a long time. Yeah. But then she had a return and whatnot. Yeah. So obviously we thought that in these intervening weeks that we've had being new parents, it might be a nice time to kind of ease our way back into this. If you've not joined us over on Patreon, we've still been reviewing all the pay-per-views and all that jazz. But it was very fun researching this episode with a tiny human on our knee. A tiny little baby who's not here today. No, this is really hard because generally speaking, Little Onion has basically been the third man. But she doesn't even know. She doesn't even know that she's often here either dozing or gently breastfeeding or whatnot. In better hands today, Joe. Yeah, she's being well looked after by our good friends, Adam and Ali. And unfortunately, as a result, Joe is extremely out of sorts today. It's weird. I feel kind of naked. I'm so used to having like a really distracting, adorable creature like needing things from me while I record. Now, obviously, I have my opinions on this, and I think we've talked a little bit about on there's been AEW and WWE pay-per-view reviews, there's been some Total Divas episodes, etc. How's the little one getting on with wrestling so far? Just from the perspective of a mother, I think, more than anything. Well, okay, I think it says it all that when we left Onion with Adam and Ali downstairs, who they're looking after them right now, wrestling was on the TV. And WCW Saturday night, folks. Yeah, and I was like, please, guys, don't feel like you have to watch this. Like, you can play it on the PlayStation or watch something else if you want. Like, the TV's yours. Like, go ahead, do what you like. And they were like, oh, well, look at Onion. Like, she's having a great time. She's, like, really invested in WCW right now. And we all looked over, and there she was, like, completely gripped. Yes, she enjoys the wrestling, from my perspective, as best I can determine a very young baby can enjoy wrestling. I think anything that has a consistent visual style and then intermittent loud bangs. I mean, Alex Wright was on the screen. So, hubba. I mean, he's one of my faves, so I'm glad she inherited that from me. One of the earliest memories I think I have of the baby is literally like 4 or 5 days back from the hospital, and you were going up to bed, and me and Onion were just there watching a Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat match, and you had tears in your eyes because you were proud of us for some unknown reason. But mark it right now, folks. Kid's a hell of a worker, can take a bump. She can take a bump. Good solid fundamentals. And I think we're going to get them enrolled in wrestling school. She's a talker too. Honestly, some of the babbling that's been going on. Cut a mean promo. So I think maybe, age 2/age 3. Yeah. Start them young, Give them the scoliosis really early. Yeah, like toughen up that spine, hell of a... I'm not going to lie, Joe. Today's episode is an interesting one because I think had we done this maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and we're going to put aside for one moment the fact that AJ Lee had a very big, publicized, huge return to the WWE after a lengthy, near 12-year absence. Yeah. But I feel like even we put that to one side, how I approach this or how I've taken on this very interesting, very unique story about this woman, I think is very different because we have a little kid now. And I can't help but dwell a little bit more on things like background, upbringing, what makes a kid turn to an adult and what the past that they lead and all that. Yeah. And I don't want to say this is going to be a dark-sided episode because I think it's going to be quite a joyful episode and we've had a lot of fun revisiting this. But talk about an upbringing, a background that it'd shock you, honestly.
It's genuinely shocking. Yeah, I think I would say that AJ Lee's childhood is among the hardest we will have covered in this podcast. And that's saying
something.
A lot. Like we joke about it. Like it's a theme of this show.
Yeah, kind of damaged, broken people or people who've had hard lives.
Absolutely.
Find kind of solace in this. It's still one of the things about wrestling that is very old school. It still is there to a smaller extent.
It attracts.
Kind of, the traveling kind of circus type of vibe to it, and it does attract those people. But honestly, I think it was this morning we were having a cup of coffee, putting together the last few bits for this, or notes and whatnot, and I was like, who's got a harder road through, childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, into becoming a wrestling superstar? And I was like, Roddy Piper?
Yeah. That's
New Jack? Maybe? And that's if you take half of what New Jack says as being truth and not an exaggeration.
Yeah, it's hard to compare in some ways. AJ, it's because of her, there's so many factors that go into it. It's not just because of where she's from. It's because of the age of her parents. It's because of the income bracket her parents had, lack of family support. There's just so many factors that made her life unnecessarily hard.
Which is shocking in many respects, because a huge key to this character that we'll kind of delve into throughout the episode is so many people, myself included, by the way, as someone in the a man in his mid-20s, some white Irish man in his mid-20s going, she's just like me.
Yeah.
And she is someone who is so relatable, so often had people in her heyday pointing at the screen, be like, oh my God, that's me, she's me, or I relate to that, that's me, and all the different iterations of her character. And yes, the background, I don't think, is one that, I would say people wouldn't relate to it, but I think people would be shocked that she's had more than her fair share of life tax on the road to wrestling superstardom.
Yeah, so for the record, we read her biography, her autobiography.
Crazy is my superpower.
Crazy is my superpower. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah, it's really good.
Even outside of the world of wrestling books, it is just standalone, a very good book. It's very well written. It's very readable.
It's a stretch in some respects, and it's not a dig to call it a wrestling book.
Yeah.
It is very much her autobiography. Yeah. It's about her. It's very well written in the sense, as you were saying, I think that it's uniquely her voice. She's telling her story. I think you gain a really incredible perspective through it.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, it took a hell of a lot of courage to write it.
I absolutely recommend anyone listening to this to read it. I think if you enjoy reading full stop, you should give it a go. It's the type of book I could hand to my parents and they'd have a good time with it, because the section about wrestling is actually quite small.
Yeah, it's honestly probably as big as the section in Mick Foley's first book about being in the WWF that I skipped to age 10. What the fuck is WC? Fuck no. Fuck no.
But she talks in it a lot about her very hard upbringing, and she talks a lot about stuff that is very relatable as a millennial.
Yeah, I think so. I would wonder if the younger folks perhaps might view AJ
a bit cringe.
As a bit cringe.
Yeah, but she at least wears it on her sleeve.
Yes.
She's not like...
In the best way possible, she made me feel self-conscious at points while we were researching this episode.
It's kind of like... I think it's an important thing to be able to grow past, though, that whole they're nerdy and embarrassing, and just embrace the fact that they really love something a lot. And that's quite lovely.
That's quite cool, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Very empowering. Now, what's interesting about this is that I think when you came into wrestling, which often is kind of the lines are blurred between when I came into your life and when
it was like a year,
very shortly thereafter. I think
it took a year for me to get into wrestling, where I started watching and then up until when we started the podcast and I started doing it as my job.
Because there was a few times I think where I think you may even have seen AJ, maybe one, because I remember the first pay-per-view I ever showed you was SummerSlam 2014. I think we're doing a match from that later on.
Was that the one on the bus?
No, that was WrestleMania 30.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I showed you on the bus that broke down to Horncastle.
Yeah.
So, finding out about your first thoughts and impressions, because I do feel like she might have been one of those few female performers that the likes of me, Billy, and Adam would have been like, oh, fucking AJ's awesome, she's great, she's cool. And we're not kind of gooning over, like, oh, she's so fucking hot, man. Because we're not that type of guy. But she was a firm fave. I will tell you, from my perspective experience, I remember watching pay-per-views with Adam and Billy at the snooker hall in Lincoln,
Yeah.
and coming out afterwards, and they'd be like, good thing that AJ Lee match was on that show because the rest of it fucking sucked.
Yeah.
But like, we were all big fans of her as a wrestler in a time when women's wrestling was kind of an afterthought in the shadow of Total Divas.
Absolutely, yeah.
But had you, like, what were your kind of early impressions? What did you know? Like, were you aware of the fandom surrounding her pre-big return in the last year or so?
Oh, yeah, obviously. I mean, you can't do an episode on CM Punk and not be aware of AJ Lee. Like, and she's just like, she has had a massive impact on current wrestling just from the Give Divas a Chance hashtag, which, you know, so I think we've been doing How To about a year or two at that point.
I think it was just maybe
Just
started, I think,
But
yeah.
either way, I was a firm wrestling fan at that point, so I remember the hashtag going viral and it all being a big deal. I didn't know who AJ was at the time.
He was actually out of the company very shortly thereafter as well.
Really?
After doing that.
Was it because of that?
No, other reasons that I'm sure we'll delve into
Because
as
the
we
timing
speak.
of that, I don't know, it always made it seem, from my perspective, it always seemed a bit like she was punished for it. I'm not saying that's the case. I don't know what she was let go for, or if it's her contract ending. Or...
But wrestling, I mean, has a notoriously short memory span as a collective, which is great because then returns always surprise you. Like,
Yes, yeah.
that person. But I can't really think of someone who has had the outsized impact or everlasting impact given how brief a window on the main wrestling show or the mainstream of wrestling that she actually had.
Because her in-ring career was only like nearly 2 years.
On the main roster, it's just about 2 years.
Yeah, sorry, I say in-ring career. That's not giving her credit for, like, she was an independent wrestler for a while and stuff like
independent
that.
wrestler for barely 2 years before she was signed. So I think all in, she was wrestling total for, like, including earliest days, for like 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, 3 of which under WWE,
Wow.
1 of which that would have been kind of in developmental and whatnot. But it's weird because it's like when she did return most recently, it's not like kind of people had forgotten about her. Her name constantly mentioned.
She casts a big shadow. Is that the right phrase? It sounds really sinister when I say it like that.
Cast a big shadow.
But she does. She's an important figure.
What was your understanding of why that was, though? Seeing as you didn't get to see, you joined as she was, you're passing ships in the night, so to speak, as fan and wrestler. Did you ever catch on like why people were drawn to her, or what the big deal was about her? Given that women's wrestling seemed to exponentially improve after she left, which is no dig on her, by the way.
But I think again that's partly because of her, because of the Give Divas a Chance hashtag. Like they were forced as a company to take women's wrestling more seriously and give it more screen time.
And could you let people know, in case folks aren't like us who think that 10 years ago or 11 years ago was like two days ago?
Yeah.
What was that hashtag all about?
What was a hashtag?
No, well, yeah, hey, what the fuck's a hashtag?
Coming to this show and asking
us that, like, we're a museum of hashtags. But, like, what was that all about, like? Because I think that was something that did catch fire quite a bit in 2015 or thereabouts.
So, okay, this is kind of tied to my first impressions of AJ, I guess, which was, I was always under the impression, and I think this is unfair, but I understand where it comes from, that women's wrestling was dog shit except for only her. Which, when you think about it for longer than a couple of seconds, makes no sense. You have to have a match with somebody. It has to be at least one other person to be okay at wrestling.
That's true.
For her to have a match with.
Yeah.
You can't. Okay, I know. It's an industry where you can carry someone. Kenny Omega had matches with an 11-year-old girl, and there's people who are having matches with broomsticks and whatever. But, like, you can't. I don't think you can have that much of a separation between one talent and the roster.
Yeah. But she kind of, I think, in many respects, is a result of her character being authentically who she was.
Yeah.
She felt like she was outside of what women's wrestling was at that time. And if you want to know what women's wrestling was at that time, listen to our episode about the Bella Twins.
And I think...
because it's former models,
absolutely.
Diva Search cast-offs, an idea of like a woman's place in wrestling in WWE was to be something pretty to look at and maybe skip around frivolously or whatever.
And I think maybe that is more of the answer about why she stands out, which is, it isn't that she was the only good wrestler, it's that she was the only total package. You had a time when the main women's roster in WWE were these gorgeous ladies who were often very charismatic, although not always. And then you had AJ Lee, who she could cut a promo, she could wrestle a match, she had a fully concrete character.
Who felt authentic.
Established and authentic, yeah. And I think the Give Divas a Chance hashtag came from the fact that at that time, because there weren't many total packages on the women's roster, and because it's a deeply sexist, historic company, the women weren't given much screen time. They weren't given long matches.
It was in response, of course, to Stephanie McMahon, who, boy oh boy, it was interesting watching AJ Lee be on her podcast where AJ Lee is talking about like her upbringing and the the necessity of things like food stamps and educational allowance and benefits and all that. And
we're all trying to find the woman who did this.
My mother is very, very much looking into this by getting rid of all schools,
all of that,
all schools, and no food
and the
for
concept
children.
of education.
But you don't need schools and food. You've got prediction markets. But it was in response to Stephanie McMahon doing her typical kind of, the very 2015 girl boss, like, I just saw something and, like, you use your voice.
Yeah.
And then AJ off the back of that is like, well, we often are in the highest rated segments. A lot of our women have sold loads of merchandise, and we don't get paid the same as men. And we don't even get the same amount of screen time as the men. And, like, the idea of, like, back then, the idea of a woman in WWE being paid the same as a man,
it's laughable.
And that's not us being anything other than realistic fans of women's wrestling. And we love the Total Divas era. We love where women's wrestling is now. I think there's a lot of times where I think wrestling fans feel the need that to bring something up, you have to tear down what came before it. So if AJ Lee is great, that must mean that everything else around her and before then was fucking shit. And that's not necessarily the case. She is, for those who don't realize, one of the most collaborative team player, trying to raise up all the other women, of characters along with her, despite the fact that her character was very much like, oh, you're all the reality show girls and I'm the real wrestler.
And I will accept this. If you listen back to the end of the NWO episode, even up until that point, I was totally worked. Because I think at the end of the NWO episode, I was like, well, I'm really excited to do this episode on AJ Lee, but I am kind of like, I'm curious as to how, like...
She lives up to the hype? Is that it?
No, it was the fact that, like, I was under the impression... I fell for the character. I was under the impression that she was one of those women who was like, I'm not like most girls, because that's what her character was like. Like, that's literally it. I got worked.
But I think it's interesting that I think a lot of folks think that if you do stick out, particularly in the women's division at that point in time, you have to have had... a series of like huge blow up arguments and it's competitive, and to invoke change you have to throw a load of people under the bus and burn a load of bridges and chop off a load of heads and all that. It's actually quite far from the truth. Her biography, by the way, is I think the only wrestling book ever that doesn't name any names when it comes to this person was a little bit rude or this person made me feel a bit out of sorts or whatever it may be.
Hoping for like gossip or tea being spilled, you don't bother. Like there's none of that,
folks. I searched high and low trying to find, as I always do anytime we do an episode on a very important or divine...
it's part of the research.
You gotta
every
find
time
out. You type in the
honky
person's
tonk
name
man
and then shoots on and then be like, AJ Lee, she shakes a few whores now. But I couldn't find anyone saying a bad word, and like there's lots of people you would assume would have bad words to say because, her character was often at the expense of not just individual women, but like the concept of being a woman in WWE was very much like, that's not cool, this is who I am. But yet at the same time, feel like I found Rosa Mendes, she said in some interview, she's like, oh yeah, I fucking hated her. But like, we tell each other that. Like, we'd say it to our face.
Yeah.
So that we're all cool about that because we didn't like each other, but we would address that fact.
That's a fact of life as well. I think you're going to come across people who don't get along, and it's about how you deal with that situation.
But what I think is very interesting about today's episode is that I think I had not a panic attack, but I got quite a bit nervous in the build-up to this because that return that happened end of last year, and it kind of feels like we had a pause at least, or a period of going away for a little bit at WrestleMania this past year. AJ's return did not necessarily fill you up with like, oh my fucking god, here we go. If anything, I thought the return of AJ Lee actually made the research and helping you understand what was great about. Like there was this point where I was like, I don't know, like if she's going to like any of this.
Yeah,
I'm really worried because that return was a little bit and a little bit Becky Lynch heavy, who you and I struggle with a little bit. And then we started writing down all the stuff that we were going to watch. And I was like, oh, actually, this is unironically some of my favorite shit in wrestling ever. So we came around on it. As kind of a backdrop for going into the episodes, how did that return of hers impact you? Do you think they explain that character or her kind of benefits, or was it kind of like more of a nostalgia vibe for you? Because I'll never forget when they brought the NWO back at your first WrestleMania, and
so
you were like,
confusing.
mega shrug, and then like we're in this household now. If anyone talks about DX, Joe's like, fucking NWO house is what this is.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, come
For
on.
life.
We can do it. I guarantee after the DX episode, I will still hold my stance in that respect.
Yeah, you will.
I'm NWO for life. I think they did a terrible job of explaining who and why she is, basically. But then I also I think it's a difficult one to do.
Because WWE is not very great at embracing some of the thornier parts of its history.
But also, like, a lot of her backstory, her main run before she left, was tied to her being in relationships.
Yep.
And I think now she's married, it's kind of a hard thing to just like, you can't put her back in a relationship with Kane, can you? Like, that doesn't work.
Spoilers for later on, God. So we're going to get into a little bit about her background. We're going to talk about her early days. I think we agreed before we started recording that we didn't just want to be like, here's all the really like headline, super shocking, horrible shit that happened to her when she was a young girl.
You could do like a kind of dark side of the ring, or like not true crime, but you know those podcasts where it's just like you talk about the fucking nastiest, heavy, abusive shit ever.
And then you put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, you could do a whole 4-hour episode just about her really, really, really traumatizing childhood. We're not going to go into much detail because I don't think it's fun to hear. Like, it was quite hard to read that stuff.
There's a lot of like kind of, bam, headline. And I think we will still have to talk about kind of the hardship, and there's a difference between, I guess, describing her upbringing versus some of the individual anecdotes.
Yeah.
Honestly would make your head spin. And I think what I was talking at the start about, like, kind of how being a new parent has maybe affected the research and stuff for this. I did find hearing about this little girl from fucking New Jersey who had a fucking rough go of it, to say the least. I found it really hard.
It's really, really hard to read about. So she, I guess to start with, her parents were only 16, 17 when they had kids.
We've had this before with the Bella Twin episode, etc. Kids raising kids.
Yeah.
Which is a great off-ramp for kind of abdication of responsibility of like, oh, what do you expect? Like, but even still, I kind of feel the trauma that was inflicted upon her just from the nature of who her parents were and how they treated her. Even in the book, which has obviously come at the end of a long road and the beginning of another long road about her mental health journey and whatnot, there were moments in it where I was like, you're being too fucking nice to these people who raised you.
She's very
understanding.
She gives them so much leeway, which I don't know if they really deserve, but I guess that's not my place to say.
Because I'm reading some of this stuff and I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so mad about my mum that time she didn't pick me up after school. I had to sit for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And a priest came out and was like, you're on a cold seat. I'm like, I know. Yeah, that's all right. That's fine. My mum's great. My dad's great. It's okay. It's all. But her lifestyle growing up is very, I guess, chaotic in many respects.
Very chaotic. I think she had so her parents, when they got pregnant, they were basically like disowned by their parents. Yeah. So they were kind of thrown out onto the streets, as it were, with the little babies that they had, and left to kind of fend for themselves and forced to grow up, I guess, in a very quick time period. And they just didn't.
That's it. It's this weird idea of, if you are very young and you're suddenly given all this responsibility, and for the record, like, I'm 38 and I still feel like I'm not ready for this, I think that's part of being a parent. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have children in the mix at that young age, and then also to have on top of that be like, it's brought some sort of a shame to your family and you're cut off. So there's many respects you can kind of think it's like that's going to form a family unit that's made out of like adamantium. You're going to like be stronger than ever. You're together, ride or die, Bonnie and Clyde, showing up for one another because you're on your own. But what seems to have happened, and AJ is the youngest of the 3 siblings, is the kids kind of ended up having to sort of look after the parents a fair bit.
So I think it's the fact partly that like her parents are very strong personalities. Like her dad was this like super charismatic like member of the community who knew everyone.
The guy like high fives everyone on the street.
Yeah.
You know, knows the wino outside the 7-Eleven. You know, knows the guy in the shop. Everyone, you know, he'll bum a smoke off a man in a suit who knows. You know, everyone knows him. He's kind of a did odd jobs mechanic and stuff like that. You know,
and because I think her parents were only 17 or whatever when they had them. They hung out with a lot of youths on street corners and what have you. They went to a lot of parties and, you know, acted like the teenagers that they were, basically.
Yeah.
And as you say, I think as a result, then the kids ended up kind of having to become the parents.
And you might think, oh, is that like, you know, they have to kind of, like Bret Hart go and, you know, cook an egg or cut a big piece of cheese on a table. You gotta read Bret Hart's book. I'm like, poor Bret, he had to cut that big piece of cheese
in that fucking mansion. Lucky boy.
And like,
he didn't know how good he had it.
AJ Lee is like, yeah, like, you know, I'm in, you know, not even double digits, and I'm helping the parents put together money to pay the bills,
and
or to eat, you know, find food to eat tonight.
They were evicted because the parents were really bad with money. I think that her dad had an alcohol abuse issue as well.
There was drugs.
There
was all sorts,
And they were both really bad with money. They didn't know. The concept of saving was not something that was like even like comprehensible to them. And they ended up getting evicted, I think, from over 20 properties and literally every property they stayed in.
They were even when they were, because I think the headline that people often hear is that AJ was homeless growing up.
Yeah.
And that is, like, by all accounts, absolutely true for a large portion. Which
she lived in a car with her family.
She lived in a car
for a year.
with a dog, 2 siblings. She lived, the one that really shocked me is she lived on a porch.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of, you know, the bit between the house, like during the winter in New Jersey. And folks, that ain't warm, you know.
No.
And it's the type of thing where even when you are in a home as they were constantly like having to grab all their possessions.
And like leave in the dead of night because they were getting kicked out, bailiffs are knocking at the door.
She spends like half a year to a year in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, with her grandparents.
And that's like this huge moment for her where she kind of connects with her Puerto Rican heritage and nature, and, you know, discovering that there's kind of she enjoys the serenity and the peace because, you know, it's one of these things that just bums me out so much, is the idea of like a little kid being fucking stressed out of their mind all the time.
Yeah, about money of all things.
Because there's no money or there's no food, or like dad spent the money on beer. There was always like, you know, beer in the fridge but never food and stuff like that. The fact that the kids didn't all just become feral and crawl all over the walls and they all fucking went insane and ran off in different directions is testament to the bond that they all had together.
Yeah, they're all really high functioning. Yeah. Like
and her particularly, and this is the thing about AJ, is like, despite all of this, and despite the hardest hand that you could probably be dealt with family life-wise, she's, you know, straight A student, absolutely like a creative dynamo. Like, her earliest memories she describes in her book are things like recreating X-Men storylines with the Barbies that she's found around, like freezing them in blocks of ice and stuff like that. And like, what's cool about her, and I think what makes a huge part of her character and her real life personality so magnetic to folks, is that she's not one of these people where it's like, and then I discovered wrestling, and it was 9 till 5 every day. Wrestling saved me. Wrestling was like, she fucking loved wrestling. Her and her brother got on great watching wrestling. But she is a child of the 90s in that she grew up with Final Fantasy, Metal Gear Solid,
Resident Evil
3, you know, X-Men comic books, all of that. She is like a Sailor Moon, etc. She's a fully rounded, fully fledged
nerd.
Proper nerd.
Loved anime. Yeah. She's a certificate carrying millennial nerd.
And I think that's something that, like, say, AEW, I think, has been very good at realizing, which is there are nerds and there are wrestling nerds, but most wrestling nerds are also nerds.
Yeah.
And I'm saying all of this as a card-carrying member of both clubs.
Yeah, we're not saying this in a derogatory way.
But I think that WWE oftentimes assume that, if you're a wrestling nerd, it just means that you're like this kind of like bore.
More like a sports nerd, I think they think of it as.
Or whatever it is. But it was like wild to think that so few people decided to pull on the threads of like, hey, I like this thing that's wildly popular.
Yeah.
You know, I'll never forget that feeling I always had in the early 2000s where it's like, oh my God, someone else who likes this video game that's been played by millions of people.
Yeah.
And yet you're feeling like a spotlight is shot on you from 1,000 miles away. Because it felt very isolated back, I think, in those earlier days when you were growing up.
I think part of it is because the merchandising for comics and video games when we were growing up, and anime as well, wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't even get Pokemon merchandise in the 90s. Like, that's
Excuse
crazy.
me. I had a talking Meowth that spoke in Japanese.
Oh, okay.
And I was
If you went to Japan,
delightfully
sure.
bemused. We went to the pound shop, baby. But yeah, I think the idea of like pop culture and your fandom as like a life raft when your life is hard is something that is extremely relatable for people, and I think it's one of the kind of the big foundations of trying to understand like why her character has lasted in people's minds for so long and had such a strong connection and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, another element to AJ is kind of her being a mental health advocate and being very open and upfront about her mental health struggles in the years since she left wrestling. And a lot of that comes back to her childhood, and specifically her mother. And to say that her childhood was complicated is an understatement. To say her relationship with her mother was complicated is probably an out-and-out lie, because it's more likely just to say that it was fucking horrible and a nightmare of epic proportions. How would you describe the kind of, I don't know, like, I don't know if it's like, what was wrong with her? But like, it felt like there was some antagonism between her and her mother throughout her whole life that feels like a wound that would never heal in many respects.
The type of stuff her mum did to her, I think most people would, I mean, if not called Child Protective Services, at the very least they'd cut them off forever. Like, you never speak. If my mother treated me like her mother treated her, I would never speak to her again.
There are moments in the book where Joe or I would finish a sentence and then whoever wasn't reading would go and grab Baby Onion and hold them extra tight.
Yeah.
Because it just felt like, how could you do that to your child?
It's so fucked up. Without going into any detail, because I think it's all a bit too dark for this podcast. Her mother had some serious psychological issues around the concept of sex.
Yeah.
With regards to her youngest daughter, April, AJ. For some reason, it all came out on her.
It's a fixation.
Yeah, like an obsession.
And you're not kind of like, oh, what? So she became like, she developed during puberty, and all of a sudden the mother kind of no, we're talking like she's like 7 or 8 years old, and she's like
being accused of like having sex with random men,
and she's like, what's that?
Yeah,
she tells a story of like getting her first period, and it's like treated like this like big scandalous,
like she's a whore. How dare you?
Let me check your hymen type of thing.
She goes to the doctor at one point, the gynecologist, because she has issues, and the gynecologist asks if she can examine her. And AJ says, like, there's a lose-lose situation. If she says yes, her mother would be like, how dare you must be a prostitute. Like, you must be selling yourself. And if you say no, then it means the same thing. Like, either way, you cannot win. And the way her mother would treat her wasn't just like this guilt and shame around sex. It was also very much tied to punishing her.
Yeah, and it was
for these perceived acts that didn't happen.
That was it. It was this kind of intersection of the bipolar disorder that went undiagnosed in her mother for a long time.
I don't think that even
excuses
a lot of what she did.
Yeah, I mean, I've known people with bipolar. I know people who have had bipolar disorder, and I wouldn't say that how it affects one person affects the other. And also, I do kind of feel like anytime you're talking about someone's hardships or the cruelty that's been inflicted on someone, and you go, oh, but, and then you say the name of one mental health disorder, then that suddenly is like, oh, okay, well, that explains everything. Like, because there's plenty of people who have bipolar who didn't do the things to their daughter that AJ's mother did to her.
Because she talks about in her book about her mum going through these manic depressive cycles, which is very textbook bipolar disorder. Where
and the idea as well, of course, is very often happens, which is if you have bipolar and you get misdiagnosed as having depression, that antidepressants can actually make
it a lot worse.
Way worse.
They can make your manic and depressive cycles much longer and much more severe. But like her mum would she had like OCD around like cleaning and stuff. So she'd go on these like manic cycles where she would like obsessively clean the house, but like to the point where like if she thought her kids were dirty, she'd like scrub them to the point of like bleeding. Like there was a story she told in her book about her getting like a wrestling move from her brother and her hitting the back of her head, and her mum, being in a manic episode, was like, your hair is knotted.
Like,
and not realizing that the reason her hair was knotted was because it was full of blood, and her just combing it aggressively, pulling out handfuls of hair, because in her mother's mind it was like, you're dirty, not you're injured and you need to go to hospital.
Her perspective on it when she wrote the book, and again, I think she said since, the book she felt she could write because she had kind of done enough work on herself. She thought that the darkest days were behind her, but she's also said that that wasn't true. She has had many struggles since then. AJ also lives with bipolar disorder, which is it's still a mental health difficulty that I think there's a lot of stigma around.
It's so hard to treat as well. I was looking into this beforehand, so I was like, well, how do you actually treat it? Because it's not like depression or certain personality disorders.
It has to be tailored to the individual.
Combination of a certain combination of drugs and therapy, and it's like it's not one size fits all. It's like it's a lifetime journey of finding out what works for you.
People's manic episodes could be very different. Some people can have that they have more manic episodes than low episodes, or vice versa. And it's a very difficult thing to imagine growing up with, yet alone growing up with it, while your primary caregiver is also, I guess in a sense, growing up with it.
And because as well of the attitude of the family, and I think it's partly due to the fact that her parents are Puerto Rican.
Yeah, she said it's kind of like a Latina thing where it's like, tough it out.
You do not talk about mental health issues. If you even remark on them, it's a weakness.
But I think as well, when you have that we've been on our own 2 feet since we were 16 years old, the world's against us, you have that kind of like a toughen up buttercup type of approach to things. But for her, it wasn't that immediately it was just wrestling was her safety net and all that stuff. It was actually more along the lines of, and I think a lot of people will relate to this as well, it was writing fan fiction and all that. And she is someone who is so passionate about that.
She's it's so relatable. She talks about how her first true media crushes, the ones that she was obsessed with, was Vegeta or Sato Kaiba, I think is the other one. All these proper broody Snake from Metal Gear. When she started listing all her crutches,
Joe was like, okay, maybe.
It reminds me of someone.
And then she was like, there's no one cooler than Jill Valentine. I'm like, yeah, I could see it. Pretty cool, I guess. Yeah, pretty cool. But I think that the idea of wrestlers coming from these hard upbringings, and I think she's talked about this as well, where you see a lot of athletes, actors, comedians, etc. There is kind of a slightly larger percentage of them who come from these backgrounds of not just impoverished. I'm talking about absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And this idea that you can escape by being exceptional and whatnot. So in school she was always straight A's, honor roll, top of the class, but also at the same time as well she was punching out kids. It was a very scrappy existence. She was constantly fighting in a way that almost kind of goes against her wrestling character, because her wrestling character is very kind of cagey and kind of a lot of mental mind games that she plays, whereas it seems like she was the loose cannon when she was on the playground.
Was unhinged. But I think that's partly because her dad, and this is probably again because her
dad teaching the man rules, is that it?
Literally. There was a time in school where some boy picked on her and she just beat the shit out of him. And bear in mind, AJ is tiny, but she was also born premature. So she was a teeny tiny kid, so small. And she got pulled into the head teacher's office and they brought in her parents, and the head teacher was like, what is April doing? Why is she in my office? Why is she beating up kids in the playground? She's a straight A student. I expect better from her. And then her parents took her home and her dad was like, fucking A, well done. Basically rewarding her. Every time she'd get in trouble physically, her dad, every step of the way, was like, well done, do that.
And then it's no surprise then that there was a lot of childhood moments of having to stand between family members who were about to kill each other and stuff like that. And I feel she was in that position as the youngest, as being the kind of person who's left looking after the family, because the other siblings kind of
They left home
leave home quite young.
Yeah.
Her brother actually gets deployed to Iraq quite early, and it's really cute that. I think that relationship with her brother is like kind of where the wrestling fandom comes from.
Definitely. Because she talks a bit about how, because I think her brother is the oldest sibling, and then she's got a sister as well. And her brother was always like, most of their childhood, he was kind of like, I don't want to hang out with the baby girl. Like, she's like a tiny little girl and I'm a cool teenage boy. Like, I watch wrestling and she probably plays with Barbies. But she, like, always wanting to kind of bond with him as the youngest sibling, would be like sitting there watching wrestling and being like, they're cool, huh, brother?
Sending him extensive recaps of Raw and SmackDown onto the line of battle in Iraq.
And be like, you don't need
and
to
have to send him like a message from Iraq being like, I really appreciate you letting me know what Test is up to and Scott Steiner and the gang, but you don't have to do this. And I kind of relate to that as well, because I only got into wrestling because of my brother.
Yeah.
But also I think like very quickly my fandom for it completely eclipsed his, to the point where I don't think he realizes, by the way, like, this is kind of, this is your fault.
Yeah.
So you can blame him, Joe, is what I'm saying. There are these moments where you feel like she's going to come in and like get that escape or whatever, and leave behind the troubled family and having to do all this stuff.
She's very ambitious. From this, like, literally as soon as she goes to school, she realizes the only way she's going to escape poverty is if she works really hard, like way harder than everyone else. So she does really well in school. She knows she has to win scholarships to get to university.
She gets a scholarship.
She does it. She wins the scholarship. Her application to NYU, which she did get into, by the way.
This is like for creative writing, so probably one of the top
one of the best courses in the country. She applies with Metal Gear Solid fan fiction as part of her application, which is a legendary. Very cool. So she gets in. She works a summer job to save up it's like $500. Yeah.
Which, I don't think anyone's ever going to go, that's not much. That's a lot of fucking money. Like,
that's a lot of money. It's especially a lot of money to a homeless child. And she saves it then there's like an envelope that she hides in the house. And her mum is like, do you mind if I take some of that money to pay for rent so we don't get evicted this month? And AJ's like, yeah, sure, take what you need. And she takes the whole lot. And so she has no money for her college application, which she has been accepted into. This is the wild thing about American universities. It's like, as an English person, it's incomprehensible to me that like you'd have to pay in the first place, let alone pay after the fact.
How many do you pay a year to
No, obviously you pay
Joe?
for tuition, but for like the application.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know. That's like when I remember when I moved to the UK and I was in Glasgow looking at houses and I was like, all right, we want to rent this place. Like, all right, yeah, you can send us the £200. It was like holding fee. I'm like, what's that for? It's like, so we stop showing it to other people and accepting their applications.
So scummy.
And does that mean we get it? She's like, no, that means that we won't show it to other people.
Yeah.
So there could be a situation where you pay them the holding fee and then you don't get the house, which nearly happened.
Yeah.
So she ends up like getting, literally proper like after school special.
It's sweet.
All the kids from like, she does like the peer-to-peer mentoring thing to help all the troubled kids who are also in fights at school. They raise money on her behalf.
They hear, because she's like the standout, straight A student that everyone gets on with. And they're like, well, she's the one who's going to escape poverty. She has to do it for all of us. They hear that her money's been lost and she's not going to get in without it. So they, behind her back, collect the money. They go around all the kids. They have nothing themselves. It's a really low income area. They're all fucking, living in poverty. And they scrape together the $500 for her and give it to her just in time for her to get in her application.
So she manages, I think, like a year or two at the university, which proves itself to be almost impossible for her. Like, even with the scholarship, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Like, literally when she's signing up, they're like, you probably can't afford this. Is like the most expensive place to live. And I think the draw then of her parents, now that she's the only one left, she ends up kind of dropping out, in part because of the unaffordability, in part because of the caregiving that she has to give. And it's weird when like you talk about like a young adult like that and their life is just starting and you talk about being a caregiver and you're assuming it's like, all right, because the parents are like younger than you and I are now.
Oh yeah, way younger.
But she has to like look after them because like they do stuff like she can't get like kind of a proper bank account or credit cards or anything because her parents like with the 3 kids, they took out like loans in all the kids'
Yeah,
names.
so their credit scores are
so
all
they
fucked.
even before they're 18, they all have these fucked
Yeah.
up credit scores and all this like, you know, paper trail and debts and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So they like talk about being saddled with everything imaginable. And like it's odd that she basically just kind of is like passionate about wrestling and all that, but it's almost like kind of a Hail Mary moment where it's like, well, this was fallen through.
Yeah.
I'm stuck back here for the time being. So I love wrestling. Maybe I'll try wrestling.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like this was the obvious
It's
plan
so
all
funny
along.
to
It's
have
kind of
it-
like a bit of a Hail Mary, yeah.
To have it as a backup option, it shows that she's very intelligent. Like
She knows she has something to offer
Like-
on the grand scheme. Like,
But the fact that like she grew up as a wrestling fan, like so many people we've done episodes on grew up as wrestling fans, and they are determined, they are single-minded, I'm going to be a wrestler, and they do it. She, meanwhile, is very well aware of how hard it is to become a wrestler, and so she doesn't have it as her main option.
Yeah.
It's, no, I'm going to work hard in school, I'm going to get a degree. It's only when that falls through that she's like, well, I've got literally nothing else left to lose. I may as well try my childhood dream.
it's kind of like wild to cast your mind back to that. That's like, you know, 2007, 2008 type of periods. So even though you're just about hitting a PG era of WWE, you know, she talks about the types of women that were there beforehand. When she grew up watching, she saw like, you know, Chyna, Trish Stratus, Lita, etc. I think there's some maybe comparisons to Lita or whatnot, but generally speaking, you're talking about either like super powerful super women like Beth Phoenix or whatever, or it's like, you know, super glamorous blonde bombshells, because there was like, you know, Tori and Trish and Sable and Terry and all the, and she's like, I don't fit any of those molds.
Yeah.
It's not that she looked at Lita and goes, that's me, because it's like, you know, she is a tiny woman with probably like, in terms of like a build for wrestling, honestly, you're talking about doing your rolling at the start of a D&D campaign. She rolls like probably the worst physical traits you could have. And I'm not talking about like eye candy or John Laurinaitis wanting you to be fuckable. I'm talking about like, she is so fucking small.
Yeah.
That,
And at
you know,
this point
she's
as
designed
well,
to be hurt by this.
up until this point, she is not athletic in the slightest.
No, yeah, she's really like her partner CM Punk,
Yeah.
a natural anti-athlete in all respects.
It's again like we've done so many episodes of people who get into the business, and they all like, I can't think of, like, other than Punk, I can't think of anyone who got into the business who didn't at least do a sport in school.
Yeah.
And she did nothing, and yet she's like become a very athletic adult.
I just think it's wild to think of a time, because I remember what it was like growing up then, and kind of, you know, everything was kind of set in stone. These are the way things are. We haven't atomized all of society through social media,
Yeah.
and not every single niche is fulfilled by a subculture online that has a huge following and all that. It kind of felt like a little bit like, this is the way things are. And to look at WWE and be like, there's never been anyone who looks like me, who thinks like me, who is like me, and yet I think, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to work, you know, I'm going to be in Shimmer and Ring of Honor and go to Japan. No. I'm going to go to WWE, the place that is completely the opposite of everything that I
Yeah.
think I am, and I'm going to make, like, it is a powerful delusion.
Yeah, seriously, that's what I was thinking. It is almost like a delusion, except it worked.
There's believing in yourself and betting on yourself, and then there's that. And if you hear her speak at any point in her life out of character, this is one of the most humble, down-to-earth seeming, like, she doesn't seem like one of those like fucking psycho deluded people
Yeah.
who are like, no matter what, I will be the greatest in wrestling. And that was kind of her belief, was that, yeah, if I get my shot, if I get my chance, that's all it takes. And her early days of wrestling are far from glamorous, because, you know, there's quite a thriving indie scene across the world in different pockets for sure, and particularly women's wrestling. There are even, you know, dedicated women's leagues all over the world. When she was starting, there's not really a whole lot of places to ply your craft, so to speak.
She talks about the first wrestling show she did and how there were men in the front row masturbating.
Yeah, because it was basically like a
sex show.
A sex show kind of thing, you know, or a fetish show, I guess.
I
you
guess
know.
fetish show is more close, yeah.
So, you know, and she's like, I'll do it, it's fine. That's more ring time, more
Yeah.
reps. Literally being paid she didn't even get a hot dog, she got a bucket of popcorn for some of the matches she did. And the training's hard, because like many of the women that we've talked about from this era and before, there wasn't other women in the class. She was just there on her own.
She's training with the men.
And taking bumps and bombs from lads who are 3 times the size of her.
Because you end up, we've heard this before with doing other episodes on women, when you train with the men, especially in that time period, I think it's obviously a lot better now, The men either treat you like, oh, you're this fragile little buttercup and I'm not going to wrestle you at all. Or they're like, right, I have to prove a point. I'm a big deal.
Yeah.
And then they like beat the shit out of you.
You're kind of your target willingly and unwillingly in so many ways. And I don't think she leaves wrestling training. I don't think like anyone's like, and there she goes. Like, it's not like Lita. Think of Lita. She's literally trained by Dory Funk, and they literally are putting together a video being like, here she is, ready for you to hire.
Yeah.
Like, look at what a fucking star she is. Look what a perfect fit she will be for your company. Even though Lita was considered, alternative and all that. It's so funny to me to think that like Lita got sat down by like Jim Ross and be like, oh, I don't know, you've got a tattoo.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. Like, that's the huge barrier to entry. Whereas AJ is like, well, you're tiny. You are like attitude wise, character wise, persona wise, like everything about you is like the opposite of what we want. But yeah, let's give it a go anyway. So she applies, or she wants to apply for this tryout with WWE through FCW, which is the precursor to NXT, Florida Championship Wrestling, which has come up in the past a few times.
It has, yeah.
Not a glamorous place.
No.
Despite its WWE affiliation, it is a sweaty gym in the middle of a swamp.
Yeah. And the circumstances with which she got the tryout as well was really risky, if I remember from her book.
It's like $3,000.
She had to pay
just to get seen.
She, on the same day, she was given an opportunity to go, I forget where it was. It was like Japan or Mexico or somewhere to go do a wrestling show where she would get paid $3,000 for like the first time in her life. She'd get actually paid to do a proper run.
It was a little tour,
as a wrestler, like a professional work for her. And she was like, right, what do I do? Do I become like a professional wrestler, guaranteed I get money for the first time in my life? I've never had money ever. Or do I risk it all, pay money to go to this FCW promotion that may not take me anywhere?
$500 gets you in the door at the most prestigious university in the eastern United States, or 6 times that will get Dr. Tom to have a look at you.
Yeah.
Skinner will be there, and she goes into this tryout, and it's it's stacked to the gills with like glamour models, former athletes, women who've been on the indies who have like 3 times as much experience as her. So again, she's very much feeling like, I'm just betting on myself and that's what I've got going for me. They make her, all the stuff that they do in this trial, it's loads of physical stuff, but also like, cut a promo out of the blue.
Yeah.
They kind of mess them around a bit. You do your promo the day before they tell you you're going to do your promo. Like, they're trying to catch you out, basically. Yeah. And it's weird. It happens very often in her telling of the story in her book, where she has such not say a lack of confidence in herself, but she has such pervasive anxiety that something will go wrong.
Yeah.
And that something is going wrong as it's happening. That when it kind of seems to all work out for her, you kind of left wondering, did she knock him dead at that tryout and just was amazing and she didn't see it? Or was it just she was really awkward and it went really badly in her head, but they kind of decided to give her a shot anyway?
That's it, because she doesn't, I think this is normal, I think most people are like this, but she doesn't see herself the way she is. Like, the way she describes herself in her book is like she's fucking monstrosity.
Oh, man,
she's always talking about how she's, so ugly.
Yeah. We might as well talk about this now, because, with getting signed, and, you're getting kind of an opportunity more than anything. It's a great signing where you give them $3,000, right? But the idea is like, right, it's kind of late 2000s, before, 2007, 2008. If we're hiring you as a woman in WWE, first and foremost, what we want you to be is like, kind of like a host,
Yeah.
If you can do that, then we'll talk about other things like being a wrestler or a valet or whatever. But like, you need to be able to like, hey everyone, hi boys.
Yeah.
You have to have that kind of, you need to be bubbly, you need to be charismatic, you need to be inviting, engaging, captivating, beautiful, funny, sexy, but not too sexy because it's 2008. It's kind of like that impossible standard that the Bella Twins seem to effortlessly do in their minds, whatever it is. But her description of herself, even though the idea of AJ in high heels in a dress being like, welcome to WWE Live, is quite ludicrous. Even with that being said, her view of herself, she's like, I'm this, like, I've got the body of a teenage boy, and I've got like a snaggle tooth, and I'm so scruffy and smelly, and I just wear sweats and my jeans from Target. Who could ever be attracted to me? And I'll tell you this now, right? I think she is probably the woman in WWE that has one of the most dedicated, I am obsessed with you as a sexual being followings ever.
She's objectively gorgeous.
She is, for sure.
She's stunning.
But like, it's not just that she's beautiful and all that. I think there are so many people, men and women alike, who are obsessed with her.
Yeah.
Crush on her hard because of how she looks, but
Yeah.
also because she simultaneously looks like that and has that, oh, me? Come on.
I was thinking about this. She is the prototypical e-girl. She's got that kind of cutesy, like, I'm kind of like an awkward nerd, but I'm, also effortlessly beautiful. Like, she is so much like the standard template fantasy for a lot of nerdy people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying men, all genders. Like, she is just that type of person that is very appealing.
And I just think it's interesting that I think part of the narrative around her is that, oh, again, like you were saying at the start, Joe, like, oh, not like other girls or whatever. Ergo, she's not this like sexy character or whatever it is. But like, people fucking love her and we're obsessed with her.
She's like a proper girl next door.
Absolutely. And I
She's
think
the girl next door that is like, you have a crush on, you invite her over to play Xbox.
And like, yeah, the fact that people don't understand, like, by the way, that doesn't make you like an asexual being in the minds of your fans. And like, by the way, no shame with that. Like, hey, if she's your fave and you're obsessed with her, hey, more power to you. But like, she tells all these stories in her book of like, kind of, like, if she stops and really thinks about it, because she's like, oh, these men kept following me after the show. Why would they do that? She's like, what the fuck do you think? Like, she's like, oh man, I had to go into the Waffle House because this man followed me from the arena to the hotel, and like, I don't want to say she's naive, but like, there's times where I was like shocked at how much introspection she has about herself, and yet at the same time,
doesn't realize.
Seem kind of like, oh, what happened here? Why did these like this is a story she tells about like an autograph signing about like kind of men bringing like perving on her and like bringing their fucking kid at the same time, and it's like and she's
really
like, why would they do that?
gross.
I'm like, I don't know, AJ. Why would those horny men do that? I don't know.
I wonder if part of it is to do with, and it just shows it's like how much, I guess maybe times haven't changed. I don't know. But during that time period, there was so much a one size of how to be a hot woman in the media. And I think even more so within the world of professional wrestling. Because when she eventually does go to WWE, one of the main things Johnny Laurinaitis, I mean, I say Johnny Laurinaitis, I don't know it's him.
It's definitely him. And but like, he's the mouthpiece at that point in time for
she doesn't
The Office.
name him. But like, you put two and two together, who was in that role at that time?
She doesn't
it's
name him. But then he said, well, let me tell you.
Yeah. And he basically said to her, he was like, look, you're great. You're mostly the total package. You can cut a really good promo. You're a great wrestler. That obviously is not that important to us, but it's pretty cool, I guess.
That's neat.
Yeah, it's neat, I guess. Novelty. But the main thing is that's wrong with you is no one wants to have sex with you.
What are we going to do about that? But it's so strange. Like, we talked about this, it comes up all the time on Total Divas, whereas like, you were meant to be, by all accounts, and you were priding yourselves on being this PG show.
Yeah.
And if it's one thing when you were literally selling WWF Divas videos that were called sex and hedonism, and like, you're literally like talking about them as sex objects, on the tin.
Yeah.
And here it's like, no, it's not about that. No, it's family entertainment and all that. But Dad's in the family and he won't fuck you. So
but to me,
what are we going to do about that?
It's shocking that, and it's just such a fucking wrestling thing.
It's this weird puritanical thing that I think America has always had a weird struggle with a bit. Like,
definitely. But my thing was more that like someone like Johnny Ace or Vince McMahon looks at a woman and can't comprehend wanting to have sex with her unless she's wearing high heels and she's got blonde highlights.
And I would think probably one of the main ways to make AJ Lee lose her sex appeal is to put her in high heels.
Like, part of the reason
highlights and all that.
People are obsessed with her is that she's not like that.
Yeah.
But they just can't, the brain, this is literally cannot
I know.
comprehend
the lack
it.
of lateral thinking on that level is shocking to me. And she does get her opportunities on, like, tryouts on the main roster, but it's weird that it's because she's in FCW and she is, staying back, training as much as possible, doing extra time, in the gym, everything she can do, every show she's at, she wrestles multiple times in a day. She gets the reputation as being like the really solid worker, where when people are being brought in to have tryouts, she's there to be their opponent. And she tells a story about like how within 6 months, she's doing matches with girls who then go on to be on the main roster. But it's because she has that reputation that then they go, all right, she's one of our standouts, and then the WWE main roster are like, great, you're one of the standouts. Well, come on here and host the trivia challenge at WWE Live in Nottingham next week. And it's wild. It's just like you got that opportunity for having skills and abilities. And that's something I think WWE has never really seemed to have lost, which is like someone goes, hey, I work for you, and my job is to get people ready. And here they are, and they're great. I'm going to go and make them do something the complete opposite of what I've told you to train them to do. So her opportunities seem to kind of slip through her fingers because she's really worried she's going to be known as that great utility player, the girl who's brought in to shine up the model who's then going to go on and win the Divas Championship on the main show or whatever. She ends up getting like a few shots here or there on the house show circuit. And it is because other wrestlers go to bat for her when they notice how hard she's working, how much she puts into it. She credits Beth Phoenix, first of all, who was the champion at the time, of being like, she's really good, by the way. Like, she can do something. Yeah. And, you know, she gets to have a squash match with her on TV. She really, like, shines her up and, like, gives her a lot of opportunity. But it's also CM Punk as well. Who,
day one.
Day one, like, as the top guy at the time, even a maligned top guy in his mind, he had sway, and he was literally going to agents on the road being like, hey, take note, she's good. Yeah. You know, and that, I think, carried huge amount of sway. Or maybe he just had a big old crush on her, Joe. Opportunity does come knocking, but not in the way that you would like, because she has a couple of reigns in FCW as their equivalent of the women's champion. She's constantly recommended from the people on the house shows and FCW as being like one to watch and all that. And they go, great, we've got just the thing for you. NXT is going to have a new season, and it's going to be an all-female season. And because we respect the women so much, it's not even going to be on TV. It's going to be a web show.
Sorry, so was it originally on TV NXT, and they took it off for the women?
NXT in its original guise was brought on as the replacement for the ECW revival show.
Okay.
They still had a contract with Sci-Fi, the network, so they had to give them 2 more years of TV.
Okay.
They gave them NXT, and after 2 years, they're like, okie dokie, all the best. And then NXT continued on WWE.com. Now, you have to be a really hardcore super fan, Joe, to watch a WWE web show featuring the least important people in the history of WWE, NXT rookie divas, on the WWE website, which ran like absolute fucking shit.
I bet.
Like a web show in 2010, that's like... That's hard going, baby. That's all I can say. So NXT back then was not like NXT is now, obviously. How would you describe the classic variant of NXT?
It's a kind of like a competitive reality TV talent show where the rookies were brought in. We talk a bit about it with the
Daniel Bryan episode.
With Daniel Bryan, yeah. Where rookies, even though in Brian's case he was like a veteran already at that point, are paired with a mentor who is supposed to be obviously someone a bit more experienced. And then they have to do like challenges to kind of like show that they have what it takes to make it as a professional wrestler.
And the idea would be that you would have matches, and then you would have these kind of segments that were all designed to kind of keep you on your toes, like, do a promo now, 3, 2, 1, go, live TV, bah! And the idea was constantly to try and like catch people out. And with the voting aspect of it, the idea was that you would have fans vote and then decide who goes through, and people could earn immunity through challenges. But of course, like any WWE voting thing, it was massively illegitimate.
Of course.
In the early days, they kind of changed the notion of the voting like several times. Like, oh, now it's the pros will vote. And now it's like 50% pros, 50% fan interaction. And then it was kind of like, just whoever, you're eliminated. Fuck off, go home. But when it came to the women, it felt like because the show wasn't on TV and because of the kind of the viewpoint of NXT at that point is kind of being like, it's a throwaway show. It's not important anymore. And women aren't going to be important on our show, so why would they? This is the least important show imaginable.
Yeah.
So the women in NXT season 3, AJ referred to it as like a humiliation ritual.
Yep.
They did some of the fucking most banal, bizarre, weird, stupid, cringy, awful, everything you could call it.
It's literally my nightmare. The stuff that they are made to do is
like
my
5
nightmare.
times we were watching these.
This is hell.
And we watched all of the challenges as well, folks. And this went on forever. It was like 30 fucking weeks or whatever. And they did multiple challenges a week. And so many times during it, Joe would be like, that's my worst nightmare. Or then we come back from another one and go, actually, no.
That one there, that's worse.
That's my worst nightmare. I have a list here of some of the challenges that the women were expected to do. We have the obstacle course.
That makes sense, at least.
Okay.
I mean, the obstacle course was shit. You just have to run around the ring and like jump over some like ledges and then like jump through some tires and then push a crate. That was literally like it.
Talk the talk challenge.
I fucking hated this one. Now, I understand this is actually another good challenge. Like, it makes sense. You have to be able to do this, I think, to be a star. But they had to do like, it was like, talk for 60 seconds about teeth. That is my nightmare.
Yeah, Naomi's like being told, like, talk about toupees. She's like, I don't want to do that.
I'm not doing it.
Naomi, you're disqualified. Naomi, please leave. You're disqualified.
But I get that, like, you know, like Macho Man or Ric Flair, like Stone Cold Steve Austin. All these examples are men, which isn't great, but a true star can do that. I appreciate that is a very important skill to have as a professional wrestler, to be able to talk about teeth for 60 seconds.
I like seeing how the sausage gets made, actually, as a matter of fact. Limbo challenge.
Now that's bullshit.
Know your pro.
Oh, yeah, that was just like weird personal questions about like, what does your pro think about this?
Yes, and AJ's pro was Primo Colon, Carlito's cousin. He was one of the Los Matadors.
I think she was lucky with that one because someone got Vicky Guerrero, which is a bit shit.
And they kind of quite early doors with AJ. It's like, okay, we're going to do like romance storyline with her, because even like with Primo, they did this whole kind of will they, won't they kind of kiss thing throughout the season. And it's so interesting to me that WWE were so adamant that she was like unfuckable and unlovable and all that stuff. And yet, like when we go through all the storylines here, like other than Kane, I can't think of anyone who's like as linked to like love and relationships and horrible breakups as AJ Lee is in WWE. Trivia challenges of various sorts. We had like guess the tune, you know, wrestling trivia, NXT trivia, and this is where I became a big AJ fan because this fucking girl runs away,
smashes it.
They give them air horns to chime in when they know the answer, and she gets the answer right so many times. Her air horn runs out of gas. Yeah, where she's like. That's Dusty Rose entrance music, I think. Yes, very good. And like for me, that was like wild because the idea that this is how far gone we were at this point in time, Joe. Right? Not only was the idea of a woman liking wrestling in my social circle completely ridiculous and foreign and impossible, the idea of a female wrestler on a wrestling program liking wrestling, in my mind, was like, wait, what? This woman who's making a living wage being a wrestler knows about wrestling?
I didn't know that was allowed.
And they're like, who's known as the game? And like 8 of the women are like, I don't fucking know. What the fuck is that?
Who's the game?
Who's that? Shut up. That's who. Wild. They do a joke off. They do a dance off. They do musical chairs.
What's the point of that? Like, literally, why?
Flashbacks to lesson planning for the last week of term.
Yes, seriously.
They do present unwrapping at one point.
What the fuck?
The high school photo challenge, where they have to look at pictures of old wrestlers and see if they could recognize them when they were younger. A power of the punch challenge, where they hit that punch thing from Shenmue.
That was I did like that one, actually.
A kissing contest.
Oh, now come on.
Which was really funny to watch because Joe went, I'm guessing this is a work in the middle. We did have quite a celebrity, actually. Quite a big name came out for the kissing contest, folks. It was Dashing Cody Rhodes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Hornswoggle.
No, come on, forget him, man. Everyone wants to kiss Cody Rhodes.
At the time, Hornswoggle was probably a bigger name.
Actually, that is true, yeah. It's very much true. Like, we had the wheelbarrow race. We had a contest that was just called Who Do You Prefer? And we had a talent contest, which was somehow different from the open mic challenge. Yeah. So, a lot of it was just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
There were times where the fans got so into it, you couldn't help but laugh.
It really depends a lot on... You could tell which...
Some audiences loved it.
Some audiences were so hot and like just like a great atmosphere, and you could tell they were really into it and having a load of fun. You can just tell there'd be a great audience for an actual wrestling show. And then then there's audiences who are just like bad vibes, and you're like, they'd be bad for a wrestling show.
I think it's when they do like there's like a Diss the Diva challenge or whatever it is, and literally every time they pass the mic to another girl, she's like, boo!
Yeah.
Every single one of them they boo out the fucking door, and the whole thing is really there so Michael Cole can perfect his heel character. So you've got the voice of WWE sitting back on his BlackBerry going, this is fucking crap, you guys suck, no one likes women, why is a woman even in wrestling? This is fucking crap, I'm a war correspondent, fuck this. I think for me the moment where I stopped being just entertained and then was like, this is just like, it's so weird, it's taking me out of the moment, because I honestly, folks, I hate to tell you how much I enjoyed watching
It was really
this.
fun.
It was really entertaining for a couple of reasons.
I loved when we did the Ryback episode, watching his Tough Enough stuff as well. Like I think we both have bonded over bullshit wrestling, reality, trivia shit.
See who wants
Who's
to
got
rise
the
above.
attitude that's right for wrestling?
And what I loved about it, I was hoping this would happen over the course of the episode. And I knew it would probably, but I didn't think it would happen while they were both in costume, sat down, eating Mars bars covered in glitter and goo.
Yeah.
But Joe was like, who's that blonde girl with AJ? Those two have got a lot of chemistry and charisma. I'm like, that's Caitlyn, Joe. And we all forgot how fucking amazing Caitlyn is. Because Caitlyn and AJ, and also Oksana, and also Naomi, are like 4 people who try to make something more out of what they're given.
That's it, because it's bullshit, this thing they have to do. But it really does. I can see why they make them do it, because it really does test the mettle of the attitude of, do you have what it takes to eat shit?
Well, that's a great phrase I heard recently, Joe, which is when you have to eat shit, it's best not to nibble.
Yeah.
And AJ Lee, literally dressed up as one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, ate figurative plates and plates and plates of shit, as the crowd are going, eat, eat, eat. And she's like just slowly going. And Matt Striker's like, oh, she had 4 candy bars, everyone.
Yep.
Boo. And Naomi wins. Boo. It is a wild time capsule.
Yeah.
And the fact that anything came of it is shocking to me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like anyone got a career out of it. Because she says, you know, talked about it in her book, that like they'd show up and they wouldn't have like a dressing room for them.
Yeah.
They have to get changed under the stairs.
Oh my
They're
God.
like, that's humiliating as if you're a wrestler. You're a fucking like, she's like 20 years, you're a young woman. They're making you dress in the concourse and all that stuff. And it was there that she says like there was a few occasions where a couple of the Wayne roster women like kind of helped them out, and I think she kind of made a point that no, that it wasn't this like, oh, everyone hates everyone, everyone's catty and all women hate each other, dog, like they always say. Like she's talking about, you know, Layla, Mickey James, like they would come over and they'd like, you know, they didn't have makeup for them.
Yeah.
They had to like do it all themselves, and most of the girls didn't know that when they showed up, so they you know, they would share stuff out. AJ was like given like a dress to wear by Layla because she had one dress from the Burlington coat factory or whatever it was. So, like, her ability to look at the bright side of that, whereas I would have assumed anyone involved in it would have been like, this was the worst fucking shit ever, how dare they? But she actually ended up getting opportunities. I think it's because of that insanely positive attitude that she had. Now, she had been diagnosed with bipolar
At 19.
At 19, so, like, signed at 2021 thereabouts.
Yeah.
And going on the road and getting into all of that straight away, that's like turns your world upside down and then some. So like that's a trial by fire, even if you don't have to have that extra baggage. But she speaks very highly of Caitlyn.
Yeah, they get on so well immediately.
So Caitlyn, I believe, is one of those. Honestly, I think calling her a forgotten name seems really harsh.
It's true though.
But like definitely one of the overlooked names, had kind of. Someone who felt it was pegged for a great deal of stardom and notoriety. And it's wild to compare her with AJ, where AJ is like kind of super fan who gets in through, you know, being known on the indies, even though it was only a kind of a brief run. Whereas Caitlyn was scouted from bodybuilding and fitness. Caitlyn was put onto NXT having never wrestled a single match in her life. She was literally on the job training. That was a big part of, I think, them forming a bond, was that someone was very eager to learn, and also, instead of being threatened by Caitlyn, I think the two of them had this like shared sense of humor, camaraderie, and like that's very apparent from all of their interactions. Oftentimes, particularly with the women in WWE, when they're like, "These two are friends," and I'd be like, "Is the writer ever known a woman who's had a friend?" Because I don't think they're like this.
Yeah.
You know. Whereas those two are like proper, like, annoying nerds together in the best possible way. They even actually got to form a tag team very briefly.
Oh, they have like a crazy name
Do you
that
remember
they.
the name?
All I remember.
It's an ode to her ex, Trent Beretta, who was in a tag team himself at the time.
Chick Busters.
The Chick Busters,
That was it.
yes.
And they came up with the name as a joke.
Yes, and then the commentators actually said it.
They were like, yeah, fine.
And I remember at the time being like, "That's awesome. She likes Trent. Trent Beretta is one of the most overlooked wrestlers in WWE."
So how's it linked to Trent? I don't know.
Trent was in a tag team called the Dude Busters.
Oh, I see.
I think it's really funny because like the Dude Busters, like they would have things be like, "Hey guys, we like to play rock band guitar." Boo! No, you don't, liar! Shut up. Even though they are obviously nerds.
Yeah.
Whereas like AJ was cutting promos, being like, "Hey guys, I like Xbox 360, and if you don't like Xbox 360, that's okay, because I like PlayStation 3 also. Do you like pizza? Me too." And like there's people at home going, "Oh my god, I will die for you." Because it's like our minds were blown, Joe. What? You can't do that. You're a girl. Amazing. So I think there is an equal part of like guys just being like delighted who were watching that there was a woman who was being presented in a more like kind of, as you said, like kind of a girl next door way. But equal parts there were women watching it being like, "Fuck yeah, I've got an Xbox," you know?
Because when Johnny Laurinaitis said all that time ago, "Men don't want to have sex with you," he asked her what she thought of that fact. And she was like, well, you know, obviously that's something I have to work on, is men wanting to have sex with me. Even though at this time, worth noting, just interesting fact, she hadn't had sex.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And then, meanwhile, Johnny Lawrence is like, you gotta have people want to have sex with you,
like,
even though you've never had sex before.
With her upbringing and her mother and whatnot,
Yeah.
it was kind of like immediately apparent to me as like, okay, I think her reticence to be viewed as a sexual being and whatnot.
Completely understandable.
Completely understandable. And then, by the way, here's my first job, and the most powerful man in wrestling in my world is like, "You gotta be more fuckable, kid."
But yeah, he asks her what she thinks about it, and she's like, well, to be honest, I think it's about time that there were women watching the show that maybe could identify with the women they see on screen.
I know, right? Crazy. What a notion.
He's like, why would I care about that?
It's wild because this is the same time zone when they're starting up things like Total Divas and all that.
Yeah, I know.
And the fact that these two things would be like super disparate. It's
Yeah.
like, oh no, there's Total Divas, that's that whole world
Yeah.
over there. And then there's like AJ. And it's like, both of these are doing the same thing. They're getting women to watch wrestling for the first time.
Yeah.
And like, most of them are very similar women, if not the same. This idea that they're like, never the two should meet. Whereas I think AJ Lee and Total Divas together, I think they brought in as many women as the other did.
Well, I think, and this is a generalization, I think Total Divas brought in women who didn't watch wrestling.
Yes.
But I think AJ appealed to the women who did.
Yes.
And who had never had representation before.
And I think the difference as well is that AJ Lee also made millions of male wrestling fans who didn't like care for or engage with the women's storylines suddenly like care a whole load.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know if Total Divas had that same pull.
No. Even now, like-
even though it's got like John Cena being a
I know.
sociopath.
Got Brian Danielson.
Brian Danielson. Do you want to find out about his retirement? It's not too bad. Don't worry. Don't watch it. Don't watch. You
Fake
wouldn't-
fans.
You wouldn't like it. It's only got the greatest wrestler of all time going through the most pure expression of human emotion. You wouldn't. It's not for you. You wouldn't like it. There's girls in it.
There's girls
you
there.
wouldn't like it. Brie Bella's there. Fuck yeah. So she gets a few spots after NXT ends. She doesn't win NXT. I believe that the original winner of that ends up being Caitlyn.
Oh, right, okay.
But she was obviously the most kind of, I think, like popular character. Naomi and Caitlyn both seem to have like what the WWE were after, because Naomi is a former professional dancer.
Yeah.
She had charisma. The skills were very transferable into becoming a wrestler, even though she ended up being a cheerleader and a dancer as opposed to a wrestler for quite a while, it felt like. And Caitlyn was the star. Like, that was they decided that she was going to be like the top girl, get a championship run, all that stuff. So her and AJ are like kind of brought up onto the main roster. Caitlyn gets a bit of a push and all that, and AJ feels somewhat surplus to requirements. But there's a writer who decides, you know what, we've got this character, Daniel Bryan, and we think it'd be a really cool idea because he's this like nerd. Vince
Because he's a vegan, and that's the same thing as being a
and
nerd.
he drives a Prius, this nerd, and Vince hates him, so we're pushing him as a joke.
I know the term nerd now means it's more of an umbrella term, but back when this was broadcast, I feel the term nerd was very specific. AJ meets the criteria because she's into comics and video games.
What kind of person is the new diva, Johnny? Is she a nerd?
Whereas, like, Brian, he is, I would still refer to him as a general term for a nerd because he loves science and stuff, but he's not.
And the moon.
And the moon, yeah. But he's
and
not
erections.
there. As far as I know, he wasn't there playing video games and stuff like that. I don't think he was allowed to do stuff like that.
Just like, I think what they wanted to call him was a wimp, but it's easier to call someone a nerd. Or probably wanted to call him gay, but they couldn't do that, could they? So they called him a nerd instead. And the idea was basically like Brian was like this super underdog who they were going to do a championship run with. But they wanted to have him, like, get a girlfriend because in their mind, and this happened in the Bellas episode as well, and the Gail Kim episode as well, where Vince McMahon thought the funniest thing and the best thing in the world you could do with a character like Daniel Bryan, either to get him over earnestly as a babyface, or to make fun of him as a nerd or be a heel, was to have him have a partner, a girlfriend. That's like, and he did it over and over again.
Yeah.
Women fighting over Daniel Bryan, hilarious. Daniel Bryan having a relationship, imagine that, going on dates and stuff with him. Imagine him kissing you and having sex and all. Jesus.
What? But he's a vegan.
What, with a willy and all? Jesus. So there was a writer who pitched that AJ could be with Brian because he thought, well, Brian's this kind of underdog nerd.
Yeah.
AJ's kind of a nerd, so when we put them together?
Yeah.
And what I love about it is, like, very randomly back in those days at WWE, you get a little bit of writing snuck under the radar that's like, oh, that's actually really good. When they're trying to do something just plain and cruel where it's like, look at the two nerds, they're nerds.
Yeah.
But instead, with two amazing performers like Brian and AJ, the idea that someone like Brian, who you root for as an underdog, but when he gets a little something, like a title or a girlfriend, he suddenly becomes a bit insufferable.
Yeah.
And as if to let you as a bully know, he never should have gotten those things and we should have bullied him harder. Because now that he's a champion, he's got a girlfriend, he's the worst. Now, I will say this, Joe, AJ Lee and Daniel Bryan together as a pairing is one of my favourite storylines ever. I was literally giddy wanting to show you this. And having watched it, I'm going to say this right now and I'll stake my reputation on it. Had it not been for AJ Lee, Daniel Bryan would not have risen to a main event level in the WWE. He would have in AEW, in Japan, Ring of Honor, all around the world. This woman is instrumental to, in my mind, the greatest wrestler of all time becoming a top guy in WWE. Because their relationship is so endlessly entertaining.
Because you said that they both give great performances. I think it's partly
Brian's
true.
getting there.
He's having way too much fun with it.
He's always about to laugh.
He's always about to laugh. It really reminds me of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and how they had like Will Smith who couldn't really act. So they surrounded him with like Shakespearean level performers who was one of the best. Yeah. And AJ does such a great job. She like pulls a performance out of him. Like she drags this like, I think without her, you wouldn't get that really psychopathic performance from him. It's like he's able to kind of reflect. You hear about actors doing this all the time. They're able to act off another actor's performance.
Take the energy. And He develops as a, like, just in kayfabe, you just look at how his character develops. You know, if she's not there, you don't have Team Hell No, you don't have Yes, you don't have No, like none of that kind of stuff, that weirdness that comes from him, that stuff that was so entertaining. And I think like she had that super intangible because she is such a great performer. She delves right into the black chasm of darkness within her and pulls out, like, I'm talking about, this is a WWE storyline involving a guy
this time period as well,
2012 or whatever, where it's like a guy who's like really shitty to his vulnerable girlfriend, and I'm telling you, it's really good and entertaining. And there's no point where I'm like, oh god, I feel really awkward and cringe. Like, geez, the amount of times, Joe, in the Attitude Show when they're like, oh, there's Chaz, he beat his girlfriend, things ain't looking up for him. And it's like, that's just awkward and weird and no one likes it and we're all sad now. Whereas this, I'm rolling on the floor laughing at these two because Brian buys her this dress and he's like, I just don't get it. It looks so much better on the mannequin. And she's like, I'm sorry I didn't look like that. I'm sorry, Daniel, that I didn't do that. she has such a depth of feeling to her.
She can make herself cry, which is amazing.
But it's not like kind of, there's wrestlers who can make themselves cry.
Yeah, and there's that one, like The Big Show. I love The Big Show. It's really impressive. He can make himself cry. But it's always the same performance with him.
Yes.
It's the same kind of like,
whereas
thing.
her, there's these layers.
So many different types.
It's like, he comes across Brian as this, like, not just kind of like a pathetic character, but kind of like a loathsome character, because she's portrayed so vulnerable.
Yeah.
But she also has this kind of worry about, I don't want to upset him.
Yeah.
Like, you have these promos where he's like, and what's going to happen then, AJ? And he's like, Daniel's going to beat Sheamus, and he's going to make him tap out because he's like the best wrestler in the world. And he's going to main event WrestleMania, and he's going to win, and he'll be a legend and in the Hall of Fame. He's like, wow, AJ, couldn't have said it better myself. Like, those two should have a podcast. And like, he constantly like undermines her, but not in that kind of like a you idiot.
It's much more subtle.
It's much more subtle, insidious, and much more believable.
Yeah,
you know, where it's like, you actually want to portray this both simultaneously. It's more entertaining, but also more authentic feeling. Because I feel like this idea of like guys like and like running around like a horrible monster, screaming and shouting it. So yeah, I think it ends up being like a lot more effective on all levels. The bit I was obsessed with wanting to show you was because you could see both A, her ability to bump, and then B, like her as this kind of like a really important story piece is when Brian is defending his world title against the Big Show, and the Big Show at like 1 mile per hour turns around the corner and runs into little AJ, who sells it like she's been run over by a bus. Flings herself, bounces around.
Yeah.
And then Brian, and she's taken away in a stretcher, and Brian is like, she's 95 pounds. You are 500. You make me sick. You killed her. And she's like, being like, slowly carted away and all that. It's like, it's so good because it gets over her as this like immediately like very sympathetic character.
Yeah. And
then you could have left it there, and like for all intents and purposes, that was the idea. It was like, okay, she'll be brought in as his girlfriend. He treats her bad, and then she kind of goes away, and then that's it. He goes on and does other things. But it feels like he had that benefit with her, like that writers kind of liked writing for her.
Yeah.
And it would come up with ideas for her.
Of course they do, because she does a great performance. I think it's probably such a novelty as a writer in WWE to get someone who can actually act.
Yes.
They're so used to having just goofy people kind of doing over-the-top performances or seeming like they're reading off a script. Like, she can act with no lines.
And, wanting to insert her into, hey, she's doing this stuff with Brian, that's for the world title. And then from that, they springboard into her doing stuff with Brian and CM Punk as like a WWE title thing. She's involved in like really high level stuff, and like I think it says a lot that they had the faith in her that quickly to be like, hey, you know what, our world championship match is going to be contingent on you. Like, she is the focus.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot as well about Brian and Punk that they were okay with that.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of men in the WWE then, and probably even now, who if, hey, the whole storyline is going to be about, this girl who's gotten in kind of under your skin. I don't see like, even I guess a lot of the top guys are all married now, I guess. It's probably hard. But I feel like a lot of guys even now wouldn't want that to be the case, because I think they would think it would undermine the women as well.
Definitely.
I think she raises the game of all involved.
Yeah, she does.
How does she get involved with CM Punk, do you remember?
So Brian starts feuding with Punk, and bear in mind at this point, Brian and AJ have broken up. He's horribly dumped her.
Yeah, oh God. I literally got goosebumps. The promo where he dumps her.
He's like, I'm done with you.
Where he screams like, 18 seconds!
I wish you were never born!
Oh my God, I'll never forget when he did that promo and she runs away like, completely devastated.
Because it's such goofy shit he's saying.
Oh my God.
But her performance makes it so compelling.
It's so good. Because she like gives him the little good luck kiss that he insists on having, and he loses his match at WrestleMania in 18 seconds. I'll never forget that night at WrestleMania. I was so annoyed at that outcome of that match, but she tweeted, oh, I guess I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. And I was like, no! And I went from being angry about Brian losing as a shoot to like being kayfabe worried about AJ Lee sleeping on the couch.
After her childhood of sleeping in the cars, that's not fair.
This horrible vegan's horrible house. But it's after that she kind of starts... she starts showing interest in Punk, I guess, because he's taking on Brian. And I think she wants to like support someone who's against Brian.
And I think it's worth mentioning that WB had a different plan for her character at this point. They wanted her to go crazy, and then for her to kind of become, it's so fucking WB, especially this time period. They wanted her to like go into a fantasy land where she makes out with leprechauns and rides magic dragons somehow and shit like that.
They wanted to kind of turn her into, you know, the comedy mill of WWE, which would have been, all right, you'd be backstage, you're going to be like, wow, I'm crazy, look at me, I'm pulling my hair out. And then Ron Simmons goes, damn.
Yeah.
And then Hornswoggle goes, ha, ho, ha, 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 and throws a cake at her or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
That bullshit, goofy shit that everyone fucking hates. And instead, she was like, look, I don't, it's like the only time she said no. She's never said no to anything else in her whole career because she's always been like one of those people that's
Team
like,
player.
I will do whatever necessary.
And she speaks great length about being like collaborative with everyone, the writers, the camera people, the other wrestlers, all that. And I think it's like a really like that's a really good thing for wrestlers to maybe pay mind and pay heed to that she got to where she was, not by being the squeaky wheel, but by being the very cooperative cog.
Yeah, she gets on with people. But she said because of her mother's experience with bipolar disorder, we didn't really go into it, but her mother had a really bad mental breakdown at some point when she went to university, and she started pulling out all her hair and not eating, and she lost
weight,
loads of weight, and it was really scary, and she nearly died.
So I think it was still looming large over that she didn't want to immediately turn it into, you know.
Yeah, well, and she'd had her own struggles with bipolar disorder at this point.
I think that's you know, when you're coming from that background, you would think there's so many people who'd be like, well, look, I'll just do whatever, man. Yeah. So I don't want to go. I want to go back. You know, I'll just do whatever.
Yeah.
So actually standing up the second that you've gotten a little something, that's bravery. You know?
And so she was like, no, look, I want to take this kind of more seriously. I want to go the darker route. And it was around this time as well that she had actually been dumped in real life.
Yeah.
And she was really upset about it. It was her first proper relationship, you know, after 24 years of not being in a relationship at all. And she was taking it really badly. It was a really dark period of her life anyway.
So kind of credits this with being something that kind of helped her through that and all that.
She was like, right, I'm going to use this as kind of like my therapy. I'm going to act out the type of person that I know I could be if things kind of went worse for me.
Now, there's many times where you could have done the jilted lover storyline in wrestling history, and it would kind of go several different ways. Generally speaking, the best you could hope for is someone throws you a slap or kicks you in the balls at a pivotal moment, and that's all she wrote, and that's that. And generally speaking, they're not kind of main event worthy angles. So when they have her kind of start being drawn to CM Punk and coming out for his matches and trying to help him, but he's not like. It feels like Punk is kind of like he feels awkward, I guess, and that's why I thought it was very impressive was that. A lot of guys would have wanted to be like, hey, if I'm hardcore, I'll take them both. You know, like want to like make out with the babe or be like, fuck you, you crazy bitch. Instead, he's quite realistic in that he's like, all right, you know, he says like, I dig crazy chicks, and I'm kind of like, he's like, I basically says, oh, but I'm attracted to you in kayfabe straight away. But then also when she hugs him, he's kind of like, okie dokie, and then she starts bawling, crying, and he's like, alrighty then, there, it's okay. You know, I felt it was much more tastefully done, I guess, than I would have expected.
Very much true to him.
Yeah, I feel like. Because you were like, uh-oh, she started crying, he's going to be all turned on now. Damn.
It's a deep cut.
Deep cut for the shoot interview watchers there. But yeah, her attempts to help Punk kind of invariably backfire. And then they end up kind of having this moment where you think she's going to like maybe go for him and like fall in love with him, and then Brian starts showing more interest in her. Then they make her the special referee for an upcoming title match, and then Brian all of a sudden is like,
"Whoa, I'm really interested now.
I've changed. Actually, I wish you were born and grew up and married me." And she plays them off against each other, and the idea is that no one knows what she's going to do, least of all her, or does she? Because she seems to be very like calculated and scheming. She'll leave both men high and dry.
She plays the character really interestingly because it is obviously like true to her own experiences. She goes through her character goes through these kind of episodes where, you know, 1 minute like she did this really dark spot where she sets up a table and she climbs up onto the corner of the ring. It's like she's going to throw herself off onto the table. It's like an allegory for self-harm.
Yeah,
basically.
and Brian and Punk are like, no, please don't kill yourself.
Yeah. And then other times she's kind of like skipping around and seems like quite manic and a bit creepy and aloof. And I
think there's a million people guys and girls who see those moments where there's like a guy be like, come here, baby, come on home. And she's like, nope. And then the other guy's like, you idiot, she's with me. And then she goes, nope, and just skips away, all happy and like not paying attention.
But then meanwhile, she's
There's a lot of people who saw that who were like, I needed that, thank you.
Yeah. But then meanwhile, she's like kissing them as well. So she's like playing mind games with them.
And then you add Kane into the mix. And that was what I was most excited for, which is like Jo finally getting to see AJ Lee jumping into Kane's arms.
I knew Kane was going to get involved.
Kissing him and making him feel all sorts of weird.
Yeah.
She dresses up as him at one point as well. And everyone's like, what's
That's how I
going on?
seduced you. I put on a fake moustache and I...
Oh, you dressed up as me? Sorry.
I dressed up as you, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, dress up as Kane wouldn't do anything.
No, that wouldn't do anything. Obviously, you have to dress up as the person who you're trying to seduce. It's classic seduction.
But in wrestling, Jo, they're all such egotists. That's the way to their heart. I'm sorry I couldn't find it for you, but there was, in fact, a little tiny backstage segment. I think it was even at WWE.com where Kane tells AJ that he can't be with her.
Well, why? Is he not
He's
interested?
like, like for my mental health, you need to. You're a little bit.
He's been in anger therapy.
Yeah, he's just like,
he's done his work.
It's not a good fit.
not good
like
for me
I think
right
we'll
now.
drag each other down. I got all this shit with these other girls that's happened, man. Plus the fire. You know how it is. So yeah, I just think like they realized very quickly that she was adding a whole lot. And I remember at the time there was mates of mine who watched wrestling and they're like, how fucking dare they? CM Punk and Bryan, like you were as a wrestling fan, if you were watching like the Indies or Ring of Honor 5 years prior like I was, the greatest dream in the world would have been that WWE is going to give you Bryan Danielson versus CM Punk,
literally,
and they're finally going to be a wrestling for the championship on a pay-per-view. I'm like, yes, but it's in the middle of the show and the focus really is on AJ Lee. That great poster for the No Way Out show where it's her tying up Bryan on the railroad tracks. And that was it. Like, she went from being like kind of okay, we'll see what's going on here, to like, oh no, you're like one of the top women. Like, and she's not even really wrestling at this point.
Yeah, that's mad to me.
And I think that's like, there's a lot to be said for that, because I think you could almost call it a career, and having just done that and been like, there you go, you were one of the greatest characters that they saw that time period. And then I think you've done all this before you even kind of uncork the idea of her as a solo wrestler. I think that's like really like, that's impressive. I think that's in many ways the better way to prove yourself in that system is through character and making other guys come out of their comfort zone. And like, it's really great stuff. It's honestly some of the most entertaining stuff WWE was making in a not very entertaining time period to be a WWE fan, to be honest. It does culminate in a in a very strange series of proposals where AJ proposes to CM Punk, and then Bryan proposes to AJ. And then AJ ends up getting a wedding with Bryan on the 1000th episode of Monday Night Raw.
I think it's the 1001, actually.
And the Doctor of Style Slick is the absolutely incredible priest for proceedings. Honestly, Jo, I do now have to admit, I do have a regret about our wedding, and that is that we did not have the Doctor of Style Slick.
He really made the most out of his opportunity.
Talk about maximizing your moments.
There were what chance, and he was like, great, give it to me.
Oh no, my promo was 3 times as long now. I said marriage! But Bryan getting jilted at the altar by AJ because she's accepted a proposal, but the proposal is Vince McMahon wants her, oh no, gasp,
oh dear,
to become the general manager of Raw. And that was the point where you realize I don't think they fully understood what they had.
No.
Because I think in theory, like, okay, she's this great character, she does all this crazy, unpredictable stuff, people pop like crazy, so she's the general manager, because then she can interact with all these other characters, and it wasn't a good fit for whatever reason.
No, because her character obsesses about one person.
That's it, yeah.
You can't you're diluting the character now. It doesn't make sense. The brand guidelines are off.
So I think once her run as general manager, like, it lasted like kind of like a month or two, I think, thereabouts.
Really, that long?
Yeah, so it just never really clicked, I guess. But after that, it's like, okay, she got paired up with Dolph Ziggler and Big E in this kind of little group, and the idea was then that, right, we're going to put her into competition now as an active female wrestler, because Caitlyn had won the Divas Championship around this time, and they had done a little story, like, because they were friends and everyone knew that they were friends from NXT. They did like a bit when she was having her kind of her manic episode and her downward spiral, where like Caitlyn was like, you need to like stop going after Daniel Bryan, he's clearly a creep and a weirdo, he doesn't even eat eggs. And AJ like flips out and beats her up and all that, so they kind of were on the outs.
Right.
And then AJ has set this elaborate trap for Caitlyn with a fake secret admirer.
Yeah.
This is for me like the marriage of like the really kitschy WWE kind of soap opera stuff that a lot of wrestling fans claim to hate, and then like performers who are doing such a good job at it that it's like really endearing and exciting. Because AJ and Caitlyn have a special type of chemistry.
Yeah, well, they're best friends. Like,
Yeah.
In real life, like they are best friends. Like
The way they insult each other in these segments is slipping in references to Twilight and Hunger Games. You don't just call anyone a spider monkey on WWE and me not notice. Yeah, I know what's going on here.
Again, one for the girls.
Yeah. The idea is that she has a secret admirer. She's kind of, she's a bit kind of, sheepish about it. Oh, who could it be? Comes out.
This is Caitlyn.
This is Caitlyn, yeah. And it reveals that it is Big E. And Big E's like, oh, everyone just sees me as like a big henchman.
Does such a great performance here.
Yeah.
Again, fantastic acting. Because he is actually nervous. You can tell he's like, I think it's early in his career. He doesn't get much screen time at this point.
He's just a henchman, like.
Especially time to talk on the mic, even though I think of him now as being one of the best.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
But here he stumbles over his words and he like makes it part of the whole thing.
It works really well.
He's really nervous because he's about to, confess his feelings to Caitlyn.
And I think, in many ways this could just play out as like, and then the lady comes out and goes, I played a trick on you. And then, I don't know, they drop slime on them or whatever it is.
Push them into a cake.
Or they roll around or whatever. But AJ, like, plays it up in this really vindictive, like, I did this, I planned it, I sent you all those, like, fake texts, I set up a fake account, I got a fake phone, I sent you all those texts.
It's not just that she set up this fake meeting with a secret admirer. She catfished her.
It's so
like,
fucking
for an
dark.
extended period of time, got all this information out of Caitlyn where like all these things that she said about the other divas and then revealed it to them on television in front of them. Like, actually, she said this about you.
And I think it works really well because Caitlyn was the prototypical WWE, like, hey, she's kind of like this smart, powerful, sexy, tough lady, but there wasn't a lot of super depth to her. But you know that she was kind of cool and casual and laid back. And the fact that she reacts to this, like that her heart has been broken into 80 million billion pieces and her former best friend did it. It's like they make it much more than, and again, it's another case of something that on paper you go, oh, I don't know about that. But in the watching of it, it's like the audience, they have them.
Yeah.
And this is from a period of time where, boy, I'm doing 2009 WWE for the Outshare podcast at the moment. And I swear to fucking God, your stocks in pins dropping will go through the roof when you watch some of these women's matches. We did a show, there was 10 women came out, not a fucking peep for any of them. They call it, like, they do all these storylines to try and get the audience to care, like, make Mickie James be bullied for being fat, and the audience are like, huh? Like, and they don't even have phones to go on. It's 2009. But here, like, they have heat.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, the women were getting heat. And this leads us to our first match, which is AJ Lee versus Caitlyn at Payback 2013 for the Divas Championship. And around this time, Joe, a Divas Championship match would guarantee two things: a long line to the restroom and a solid 100 to 200 seconds of in-ring action as the commentators kind of talk about whatever. And
Maybe go on their phone for a bit. Yeah.
Women?
Boobies.
Let me tell you about women. I saw a woman once. Maggle, you are a woman. No, I'm not, John.
Yeah.
So their expectations are so low. And it's really funny to watch this match with the commentators starting that shtick.
Yeah.
And being like, oh man, divas. They're women. Yeah, they are. And they go 3 times over there. Like, they're meant to have like 4 or 5 minutes. They go like 15 minutes. They decide just, you know what, we're going to fucking go out and do it.
And not only did they decide that, they like beat each other up for real.
Oh yeah,
they like actually were like, yeah, we're not going to work this one. We're going to like semi-shoot it.
And you think about Caitlyn has got like a solid 1.5 years of wrestling under her belt at this point, you know? And AJ's wrestling like kind of a prototype of a match that doesn't really exist right about now. So yeah, I was really excited because I remember like this one, being a standout match back in the day. As 10-year-old boy takes on man-arms. But yeah, they are selling like nobody's business. And AJ Lee has got a particular ability to ragdoll in real time.
Yeah.
Which I can only imagine played havoc on her neck and spine as the years
Oh, I'm
went on.
sure, yeah.
She like flings herself around in this
She
one.
does, yeah. Well, Caitlyn, to be fair, is strong. Like she's not just got muscles for show. Like she fucks her across the commentary table right from the get go. Like nearly, just a sick like. She does a drop kick to AJ at one point as well.
Just
that
waffles her.
Nearly kills her, I swear to God.
Like the amount of contact is crazy considering this is from the era where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, the women aren't meant to do like moves to each other. It's
No.
more like kind of,
Rolling around.
Yeah, kind of like, or like kind of floaty gymnastic-y spots or whatever. This is like a lot more hard hitting than you're used to. And yeah, let me tell you, AJ Lee has got a uphill struggle in many respects because she is very small and yet she's meant to be this horrible, nasty heel. I found a lot in the WWE recently, and this is my own personal taste. I think we've talked about this on the pay-per-view reviews. But like, I think Becky Lynch is a classic example of this, of someone who is like really small, slight stature.
Yeah.
Like, great, awesome, all different body shapes in wrestling, kick ass, love it. But she wrestles a style where there's this extra layer of suspension of disbelief where you have to believe, oh no, she picked her up and did this thing, or she could like slam them for real or whatnot. And it's kind of like, I know you're doing these spots because these are the spots. They're your spots.
Yeah.
But now you're like, a very light lady, and we have to kind of pretend that like, oh yeah, you picked me up, or that very light little tap you gave. Oh, that's
because she does
really
this
sore.
like brawling brute style, and meanwhile she's a floaty little lady.
Yeah, it's feather touch. Whereas AJ has got such like, she's got it figured out. And I imagine physically it must be a really hard style to do.
She reminds me a bit actually here of Sasha Banks.
Very much, yeah, definitely. She got that Mercedes Moné quality for sure, where it's like,
I think when you're that
her light
small,
nature is actually working to her advantage. She's like kind of a speeding bullet.
For sure.
And she spins herself around for when she's doing offensive moves. She's not like a high flyer or anything like that.
She does, in this match, she does some high flyer spots-ish.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that's like her overall style.
I think she has, more than anything though, just got a character, and it's on all the goddamn time. And I think it's easy, I guess, in some respects when it is, who you are, and it's an extension of your personality. But also, this is the extension of her personality that's delving into some really dark shit that's kind of ongoing, and she's going into that well and pulling out all that evil black slime and making wrestling gold with it. But like, she is fully in character mode.
Yeah.
There's no like, oh, where are we going? What's going on? What's next? What's the next spot? And I feel like, as much as the standard of women's wrestling has greatly increased in the last few years for sure, I feel like a lot of the modern WWE women's wrestling has a lot of that, all right, what's next? Because we want to do the cool thing. Remember, we practiced the cool thing? Mm-hmm. Whereas here, this has felt like a proper fight between two really strong characters who don't let go of that at all. Caitlyn is like devastated. Her head's not in it. And that plays out in the match.
I think the thing that impressed me most about this match was the transitions.
Yes.
Because that's always something that I think women's wrestling struggles with. And I think it really struggles with that in WWE now. I think it's a problem with the NXT training. I think we've mentioned this before.
They can't all be Tekla, Jo.
No. Where you often see wrestlers go, right, it's this move, and now it's this move. And it's the transition from those two moves that's just like, it's stop and start.
Or the look in their eyes where
right,
it's
what's
like,
next?
What's next? Are they there? Am I ready? Whereas AJ, the look in her eyes is...
It's very natural. It makes it feel like a fight.
Yeah.
And it really helps with the work rate as well, because it is like, even the transitions feel like themselves are wrestling moves.
The crowd starts off kind of like all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And like seeing, like, I love a hot crowd, don't get me wrong. But there's often times where like a crowd is so hot, I'm like, you could go out and take a big smelly shit in the ring, and this crowd's going to be like, smelly shit in the ring. WWE smelly shit is brought to you by Dude Wipes. Hashtag smelly shit. Tag your smelly shit now on town. Whereas here, it's like seeing them go from being like, I don't actually care for women's wrestling. I don't think they can. Oh my God. Whoa. Ah. And I think that spear that Caitlyn does.
Oh my God, move over, Goldberg. My new favorite spear. It's so good.
She wallops her.
Fantastic.
The noise of impact, the spin around.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you can hear it.
When AJ stands up afterwards, and she literally looks like she's been spun around 1,000 times in a washing machine. She is like fallen over. She is out of sorts completely. She goes for the second spear, but she manages to like zip up into the corner, into this like iconic, I'm just hanging out, don't mind me pose, even though she's like upside down and inside out. Absolutely amazing. And I think it's the story of Caitlyn can't let go of her wanting a revenge because she's been hurt. She doesn't care about the championship, whereas all AJ cares about is the championship.
Yeah.
She just wants to take something else from her. That Black Widow submission move that they have her kind of, as part of her run as a single star, you need a submission. The Black Widow,
It's very cool.
it's very fucking cool.
And the transition into it is beautiful
yeah,
here.
just kind of like beautiful kind of tilt-a-whirl,
Yeah.
almost like a cartwheel on her into that move, and they are perfectly aligned for it. Crowd are so crazy. When Caitlyn gets out of it the first time,
Yeah.
the crowd really get with her. But when AJ gets in the second time, and this is something that happens with a lot with AJ, I think, the crowd are just fully with AJ at this point. And I think the crowd realise that they too like this evil, horrible, vengeful woman who has managed to win a championship and had, at that point in time, one of the best women's matches WWE had seen, like, probably ever, to be honest. I loved it. I didn't think it would hold up, given that we've had 10 to 15 years of incrementally better women's wrestling. Because, like, Jesus Christ, some of the women's wrestling we've had the last few years.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, but this managed to hold up because the crowd and the commentators were such relics and artifacts of the time. It felt like it was showing you it was better than that, as opposed to, it's good for the time. You know? But how did you get on with it?
I loved this match. So good. Just a really tight match overall. Like, it was just like there was no wasted anything. Everything that was in it was right to be there.
Yeah.
There was no fucking downtime. It was just bam, 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 bam.
What didn't feel like the intent was to impress. Do you know what I mean?
Do you really think so?
But like, it felt like the intent was two women to kill each other in the ring,
Yeah,
and they
I see,
happened to impress, as opposed to, whoa, did you see the big handspring cartwheel dive? Did you see the move? Did you see the springboard that fucked up? I feel like very often now, because they want to make these moments, and they're always talking about, this went viral or trending. Like now, like if this match happened now, there'd have to be like the moment that is like to be clipped or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas in this match, it's not like, this isn't about clippable moments. This is old school wrestling. It's about a kick-ass fight that feels real. And it's not like, catchy hair pulling and all that stuff.
No.
But it feels like a proper, like, let me tell you, I pulled apart a few girl fights in my days as a teacher. One of my colleagues got punched by one of them at one point. Like, proper nasty stuff. And it felt like that. It felt like legitimately violent and dangerous. What was your rating for it?
I gave it 4 out of 5 stars.
Yes. Hell yeah.
Loved this match. I know they went over their time. She doesn't mention in the book about getting in trouble for it. Do you know if she got in trouble?
I didn't hear anything of the sort.
Interesting.
But I think when you get a reaction like that,
I would have thought even still Vince McMahon would cut your legs off, basically.
I wonder if they revealed to her at this point, or if they knew the extent to which you're going to be the face of this division.
Yeah.
Because she has a title reign that lasts 295 days at this point. So she did, I think overall she tied for the most number of reigns with the Divas Championship, but also had the longest reign at that time with the Divas Championship as well.
Right.
Now, the Divas Championship, a big glittery butterfly that it is, has somewhat become synonymous with, the kind of the more feminine, the lighter, the less serious, the more kind of you're a candle for the men on the main wrestling show.
Yeah.
Whereas for AJ, it feels like this Divas title, like she wrote about it constantly as being like that was her goal, that was her dream.
Yeah.
When she wins the belt, she has the date tattooed on the back of her neck. So I think that Divas Championship, I understand why it's become synonymous, because that word, even diva, is kind of like...
it's so sexist.
It's loaded, it's sexist,
It is,
it's
yeah.
all that. But there is still, I feel strongly, there's a whole load of female fans who that belt means a whole fucking lot to.
Even wrestlers now. There are so many wrestlers on the main roster in WWE today who are like, they want it back.
Yeah.
And I totally think that's fine.
The belt is what you make of it,
I think it as its own division would be great as a title. I think it would be really fun. My issue was always that it was the women's belt.
Yeah.
It was the Divas belt, which I think is inherently very sexist. I think to have a division of divas is very fun.
I like the idea that, that AJ managed to prove that both things could be true. Because I think there's this idea that, divas means Bella Twins, reality TV, girly, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas women's wrestling, it's like sports entertainment and wrestling. You can't be both. It's like, well, actually, AJ, I feel, is synonymous with the Divas division or whatever. but also she doesn't fit into that. And I think in many respects she proves that it could be about whatever you decide it to be. Branding is only as good as the people who are carrying the label. And she very proudly carried that label, I think. The next night after she wins that belt, they have a very peculiar confrontation with her and Stephanie McMahon.
Oh God, I hated this.
This was wild because, like, in my mind, it was like, okay, she's done the biggest thing you could do for a woman, which is to win this title, this little trinket. So what's the next biggest thing? I guess Stephanie come out and bury you.
Okay, yeah, cut you down a peg.
Yeah, like AJ comes out and basically it's a problem being like, I'm a master manipulator. I ruined my best friend's life and I've never felt better. And I'm gonna tear this division down. It's my division. I'm in charge now. And then Stephanie's like, AJ, here in WWE, women don't tear each other down. They build each other up.
Can you imagine them saying that about the men?
Look, MJF, I know you're really happy that you won the world title, but here in All Elite Wrestling, we don't tear each other down.
Yeah, we build each other up.
The men build each other up.
In the professional wrestling industry, to say such things is a joke.
How in combat sports are you meant to, like, without completely, like, pulling down the curtain and being, like, you know, full WWE Unreal and be like, well, here we are putting the match together. But, like, what's the goal of that? And
it's just bizarre.
I feel like at the expense of the other women, I don't think this is AJ's problem. This is the WWE's writing's problem. But there's a lot of this kind of, like, anti-diva, anti-women's division.
Yeah.
And she's meant to be the heel. But I tell you, from this point onwards, she is cheered exclusively despite being like a heel all the time. Like, they always seem to cheer her when she's meant to be doing really heelish things. Like, even to the point where at the end of that last match, Caitlyn, like, full on tears at the end of the match. People like, boo. Like, they are happy that AJ wins. And because Caitlyn, the blonde fitness model, represents
that's bad.
divas in WWE.
We hate those women.
Yeah, and I think that, like, AJ, we see a lot of segments where it's like her literally and all the other women. Yeah. And I think that maybe contributed to maybe some of the less helpful anti-women's wrestling stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of fans, and we had to deal with this with the episode we did about the Bella Twins.
Yeah.
The number of comments we got from people who were like, ugh, hate them, yuck. They're basically an example of women bad. And it's like, do you not realise that you've, like, worked yourself into a shoot there? Like,
and I think
then
often
these are, like, feminist people who would be saying this stuff, and without, like, a hint of irony, being like just tearing down these women because they are hot, I guess.
Because these are the women that they also like.
Because this nerdy woman says they're bad, but she's also supposed to be a heel.
Like, she does this. They called it, like, at the time, it was like the pipe bombshell promo.
Yeah.
And she cuts this promo basically being like, you know, Total Divas is a load of shite. You're all just a bunch of, like, you know, blow up Barbie dolls. Suck it up. You know, you're all the same.
Yeah.
None of you can lace my boots. And I thought, like, it was as a heel promo, it's like, yeah, that's a good heel promo.
Yeah.
But I feel they very often failed to find someone to be a good counterpoint to her. There's a great segment that we saw. It was really fucking good, where it's signing the contract for the rematch between Caitlyn and AJ. And AJ is, like, you know, on her own, whereas Caitlyn has all the other divas all stood behind her. And, like, you know, AJ jokes about them, like, oh, it's the sisterhood of the traveling sequined bandage dress. Because they're all dressed the fucking same. In the same high heels, the same fucking dress, the same hair, the same look.
And they remind me of people I went to university with that I didn't like very much.
And then they do the promo where it's like AJ reveals through the text message that she had catfished her with that she had actually said all these nasty things about, said a bad thing about Layla and a bad thing about Naomi, or she doesn't trust Natalia. And then the rest of instead of it being like, all right, here comes the standout diva to stand up for them. Yeah. The women as a block just kind of leave Caitlyn, and then Caitlyn's like, oh, I'm alone and I have no friends. And Caitlyn her career winds up shortly thereafter.
I just don't understand why they did it like that. It just seems so obvious to me that should ignite something in Caitlyn's character. Yeah. That should make her character angry.
Or should it ignite something in someone, but it felt very much like,
oh, well.
Because the Total Divas were, like, stars in their own right and had a lot of busy stuff to do with their reality show, like, we saw some of the stuff between the Bellas and AJ. The crowd weren't really that into it.
No.
Even though it should have been hotter than hell.
It should have been.
The face of Total Divas versus the face of women's wrestling versus comment. They gave it to you over and over again, and the crowds and the matches weren't. They weren't.
No.
They weren't there.
Well, unfortunately, I think the Bella Twins at that point weren't great in ring.
No.
Like, we did watch some of their matches, and
you know,
the Bella Twins struggled to receive the Black Widow. I think
Yeah, they really lie down fully on the mat when they're taking it.
Vicky Guerrero took it better than them. But it's just like, you know, when we did the episode on the Bella Twins, we saw how good Nikki got, especially.
Yeah.
Like she did with some extra time in the ring. She actually became very competent. And it's just a shame that because of the nature of them all having such short matches, they were never given the opportunity to develop in the way that, you know, okay, yes, they could have pushed themselves in the way that AJ did. And she did take, you know, she made every opportunity her best, and that's why she's exceptional, and it's why she made the impact that she did. But I just don't think it's fair to blame all of the women for not making the impact that she did.
And she has spoken, you know, in a lot of interviews recently, that her frustration at the time was not, oh, these are the women, can't lace my boots, they suck. Her frustration was, we've got all these super talented women on the roster, and even with her having, and you would think in an ideal world, she has that match with Caitlyn, everyone's like, holy shit, women's wrestling, right? And then we go off to the races and have way better matches. It's not really the case.
No.
You're a full 2 years away from the women's evolution or revolution, what you want to call it, and she's not part of it then at that point.
You know who they should have done this with? We were talking about there needs to be a woman to stand up for the women. Should have been Natalya.
Yeah.
She was on Total Divas. She was a big name, a great wrestler.
It's so funny when they're like, oh, the women Total Divas, and then the wrestlers, like, Natalya's like the best.
She's right there.
She's the best one. Like, you know? And I feel for AJ as well, though, because she speaks very highly about the talent of the women that were on the roster, but didn't have the chance to do much other than these super short multi-women matches, which is the exact thing that she came in fighting against. And I don't think that the rising tide lifted all the boats. I think she was quite frustrated because she talked about, she went from being in a world where there was no merchandise for the women to she had several top-selling t-shirts, she was on lunchboxes, trading cards, she had a square on the WWE Monopoly board, even though it was the lowest value square.
Can't believe
I know.
Wow.
But she did manage to smash the door open. It just it didn't seem to be that there was much appetite for WWE to put other women through the door with her. And
because that's the nature of, unfortunately, WWE is, and they do it with the men, but to a lesser extent, it's a extremely hostile dog eat dog. If you want the place at the top, there is only one place.
Yeah.
And you have to fucking maul everyone else down to get to that point. And it's just like, I think it just shows how good AJ was, that she never needed to do that to get to that point.
She was still extremely entertaining in her role, but the fact that they couldn't get good challengers for her or build up the challenges that they had sufficiently, because like, our next match here is it's from Main Event, which is wild to me. Like Main Event, which is a great misnomer for a show that is far from the main event. It's like the opposite of the main event when you think about it, because it's on the very start of the show before the main event, really. And it's Natalya versus AJ Lee now we're going to talk about. And we're taking place in jolly old UK here, 2014. We will have a link to this up on the old website, howtowrestling.com, and the old recommended bonus viewing. Make sure you check out the website. You can see all the extra notes and all the other notes for all the previous episodes of How to Wrestling. And this was a little bit of a hidden gem because I think, honestly speaking, AJ's, like, once she proved herself as being really competent at wrestling, it felt like kind of the quality of opponent wasn't necessarily there, as we were saying. And she was unfortunate in that she came after the likes of Victoria or, you know, Jacqueline or Jazz or Trish, like, or those women were making, or before they made like a comeback or anything. And she was left the company before you had the real surge of talent from NXT who really redefined women's wrestling in WWE come in. So she's kind of in this like middle spot here.
Yeah. But that's partly...
So I think that we did have a lot of tweets, I should say, as a result of that, where people were like, she's not that good a wrestler in their mind, where she kind of just happened to slot in between here.
But I think that's just down to WWE, like, just not giving the women a chance. Like, when you think about it and you think about the roster, there's actually, the more you think about it, there's loads of talented wrestlers. I mean, Naomi, you've got Natalya, there are skilled wrestlers. It's just their matches are multi-women matches and they're given maybe a push 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, like, you know, I guess you can't do 3 times over your allotted time on every pay-per-view, I guess. So Natalya and AJ was an interesting one to watch here, just because I had heard tale, and we'd gotten some recommendations that this was like a match where you got to see a little bit more of the wrestling skills and ability, because Natalya is like, even back then, she was like so underrated as an in-ring worker. You know, and it's always so sad
It's really sad, yeah.
to see her on Total Divas. We review all of Total Divas over on the Patreon page, and like the ongoing thing of like how tragic Natalia is, where she's like, gee, maybe they'll finally, you know, pay attention to me for being great at wrestling, or maybe, you know, they'll pay attention to me for being like great at being on this reality show. And they always kept her like at a yard's length.
I mean, they mention here it's been 3 years since Natalia has had a one-on-one match for the title.
Fucking hell!
She's a fucking heart, and not only that,
she's a Neidhart, Joe.
she's also very talented in the ring.
Yeah.
Like, it's just sad.
What I love to see though in this was that, you know, in spite of all of that, you know, these two are going to have, in their minds, as great a match as they can. And they're running all these old... I felt like I was watching AEW from 2022. They're running all these old Bret Hart spots.
Yeah.
You know, they do all like the chain wrestling that him and Oni used to do and all that at the start. And AJ, 100% with her there all the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's very much is the case that she is one of these women where I don't think you got to see the full length and breadth of what she was capable of, because she was rarely put in the situation where you got to see that at the end of the day. But yeah, AJ is like this really believable cagey heel who's resourceful. She's not like kind of, you know, raking the eyes and using the ropes and stuff like that, but she's like very kind of like opportunistic, I guess. And she has got a heavy in her corner as well.
Yes, she's got Tamina in her corner who interferes a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to know your thoughts on her having Tamina as a kind of a background player, a bodyguard and stuff.
I don't like it. I don't like Tamina being a body for people. I've never seen, I guess... I feel like she was always just there in the background of other people's matches.
Are you saying she's not intimidating?
No, I don't find her intimidating
her dad
at all.
kills someone, man. That's as scary as it gets.
Yeah, he's quite scary.
My dad's tougher than your dad. Oh yeah, my dad murdered someone, got away with it. Whoa, okay. Yeah. I kind of miss just having Big E in the corner.
That's it. I would love for her to have a man in the corner instead.
And I think work. Yeah.
I think that as well. I've always thought that having men and women interact in wrestling really elevates both divisions a lot.
Well, even though this match has got her working shoes on a lot more, there's a lot more like submission and mat-based wrestling. That look that AJ has that's locked in on her eyes constantly. And I genuinely think she's probably one of the most laser-focused characters in ring-wise WWE has ever seen. And she really reminds me, I think in the last couple of years, Liv Morgan really came into her own on the main roster as kind of someone who went from being that kind of happy, skippy, hey, she's a fun girl, to like...
Scary,
has an edge.
Psycho girl, yeah.
Honestly, Liv Morgan, the people like draw comparisons between AJ and like Becky and all that. Liv Morgan, I think, is the
way more
real...
accurate,
that's where I think... the walking so she could run certainly definitely happened, although AJ never made a crap music video. Both women go constantly for the submission moves, and let me tell you, AJ Lee being put in the sharpshooter. Now, Natty does a great sharpshooter.
Yeah, she does, yeah.
And we are cursed as modern wrestling fans to, on fabulous wrestling shows of outstanding quality, watch some of the greatest wrestlers in the world struggle to do one of the best wrestling submission holds of all time.
Mainly because of Punk. I think he's the biggest perpetrator of doing bad sharpshooters.
Everyone does bad sharpshooters.
Yeah, but he does them more often than everyone else.
There was like 5 bad sharpshooters on the last AEW pay-per-view we reviewed. It was but Natalia, baby, she is a good one, and AJ is the perfect opponent.
She's like bent in half. Her feet touch her head.
Now, she was wearing some complex Converse in this match.
Oh yeah, the ones with all the buckles and the laces.
I think the look, we should maybe mention.
Yeah, we should mention the look, yeah.
That's
iconic.
It is.
She said
that word gets thrown around a bit too often in wrestling.
Oh yeah,
I'm
but never believe WWE if they say it.
Iconics,
Yeah.
But
she said she picked it because she wanted... It's so smart. This is like genius level stuff. She picked her look based on clothes that she knew female fans would be able to buy easily and cheaply themselves.
So they could cosplay.
So they could cosplay her, because she comes from a background where people do that stuff.
And I think she was probably like an early adopter of that, because wrestling cosplay is fucking massive now. But like 2013, like you're ahead. 2010, you're ahead of the curve there.
I find it shocking that WWE, and actually to be fair, no other company has ever learned the lesson that AJ learned. Because like you can do that with anyone. You don't have to doesn't have to be just her that is a cosplay. Like so many wrestlers just have looks that are generic, boring, like
or
little
I have a t-shirt
pants.
Every week I get a new t-shirt.
Or like on the other end of the spectrum, it's like really expensive, complicated ring gear with like straps and buckles that you'd have to be basically a professional seamstress to be able to make.
If you wanted to cosplay like Seth Rollins, if me and you want to do Seth and Becky, so obviously Joe's going to be Seth and I'm going to be Becky because I'm Irish. You would have to pick one of probably, 400 different looks that they've done.
No one would know that's what we're dressed as.
Maybe, oh, right. Do you remember...
You're just a prick, right?
17th of June, 2024? No? Not ringing any bells?
Just pick some clothes that people can buy and wear it consistently.
Whereas AJ, it's like, okay, here's your t-shirt, everyone's going to buy it, and all the girls who buy it are going to probably buy a second one so they can go to Blue Peter Town on it and, rip it up and cut it up like she does hers. It's so... And, she was one of the wrestlers where I remember seeing constantly. I would go to wrestling shows and see loads of fans dressed up as her, not just wearing her shirt, but being her. And she said, like, it was fantastic experience then for her. Well, at meet and greets, autograph signings, you got like little girls dressed up as you.
It's the one thing in which you can really see the influence from Lita, because Lita did the
Lisa
exact
had that
same
iconic look
thing.
as well. Yeah, for sure. But the third time is the charm when it comes to going for the sharpshooter. Tamina comes in and kicks Natalya in the head, ending her first title match in 3 years. Yeah. But this was a beautiful little glimpse, little window into what not just AJ, but the women in general were capable of during this point in time. And I feel like I belabor the point, but I always want fans to know, if you're coming into the show to learn a little bit about wrestling history and all that, always bear in mind that what's newest isn't always necessarily like that everything that came before they lack skill or they lacked ability. Yeah. Just because the overall standard is better now doesn't mean there weren't people who could have hung now back then. And I think, this was a really good example of what they were capable of. And it's weird to think that AJ, despite her having such a short career and burning so bright, still feels relatively untested, it felt like back then. And I don't want to compare her return because it's a whole different thing. Someone coming back from neck injuries and back injuries 12 years after their heyday or whatnot. But I think this gave you a window into the skills that she did in fact have.
Yeah.
What did you give it rating-wise?
I struggled with the rating for this match.
That ended a bummer, huh?
I found this match, 50% of it I found was a bummer.
Yeah.
I really didn't like the Tamina involvement. I felt this match was not as... And even though after everything you said... I still don't think it's as competitive as it could have been. Yeah. I would have loved to see, and I always think this about Natalya's matches, I just want to see them do a proper clinic.
Yeah.
I want to see what they've got. I want to give them more time. I want to not have the involvement of Tamina like interfering all the time, because it really felt like just as they were getting going, they had to be like, all right, now Tamina does her thing.
Yeah.
And that was really frustrating. I gave it 3.5 stars, which I think is maybe generous.
I thought the generous side for you. You could be fucking harsh sometimes.
Yeah, I can be quite harsh.
Yeah,
but it just made me want more.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And you don't get more.
So what's interesting is that around this time, her real life relationship with Punk has quite thoroughly blossomed, and actually all started during. Would you believe it? During that love triangle storyline.
Yeah.
And it's really funny, if you are in a relationship and WWE book you to be in a storyline, you end up getting divorced. But there's a fairly decent hit ratio of the opposite being true, and then you're not together and they put you in a storyline, you end up being together. Now, no relationships had to be broken up and hearts devastated and mortgages fucked up as a result of this relationship. But despite not being the world's biggest CM Punk fan, I found these two and them falling in love together to be rather endearing.
It is very cute. He obviously is into her immediately.
Oh, you can tell straight away.
He's not hiding it. I think he makes it quite clear. She, though, apparently wasn't into him at all. Yeah. And like they had this kind of like brother-sister thing as far as she was concerned. And actually,
he's really old as well, isn't he? She'd call him Grandpa.
She'd call him Grandpa, and he called her Kiddo. I wonder if they still call each other that. When they had to kiss as part of the storyline, apparently she was really grossed out by it because she was like, it's like kissing my brother. I fucking hate this.
Because the first kiss they did was the one where she pushed him through the table.
Through the table, yeah.
But there is another kiss that's on SmackDown, I think. With she and Punk and Bryan are in the ring.
Yeah.
And he's meant to be going away. Now I learned this early doors from Joe, and this is the reason why I got the skills now, is because I learned from the master here. Men at home, if you've got a lady, there's no more powerful thing you can do in this world than as she's walking away and holding your hand to stop her and twirl her back into you for a hot kiss.
Yeah.
A la the New Girl.
It's the New Girl / Ryback Curtis Axel
Ryback didn't kiss Curtis Axel.
They should have kissed.
But this kiss was so steamy and so hot that the camera people end up having to cut back to Brian so many times you can see him laughing.
Yeah.
Because they go to town, and let me tell you, folks, it's a pretty damn good kiss.
So apparently, it starts off where she's like, ew, gross, don't really want to kiss my brother. And then he just like really makes it steamy.
And he's like, no, you're my sister's stuff.
And then she starts to, apparently you can see this, where she starts to be like, get kind of into it. And then all of a sudden, they're like properly making out with
so
tongues.
into it.
And apparently that's the rule in WWE is you're not allowed to use tongues. That's too far.
Unless you're kissing Vince McMahon in the Attitude Era.
Let's not think about that. I don't want that back in
sorry.
my head. So yeah, it ends up being a extremely saucy kiss.
So the two of them coming together is like, they feel like,
yeah,
you know, every stereotype I say, like, oh, they complete each other and all that. But like, honestly,
so much in common.
Like their backgrounds are so similar. I think the difference is like, you know, we were talking about the Punk episode, you know, when we're researching this about kind of how you know about his background, but he's not kind of delved into it, like, you know, kind of, cause she really has shared some really like, you know,
very intimate
stuff. And you know, you shouldn't be entitled to know that as a fan of someone.
And Punk is not like that at all. He's very private.
But I think there is definitely a lot of parallels between their kind of their upbringings and stuff like that. And yeah, I kind of feel like something that doesn't get talked about enough, and it happens around this time. Now AJ does have some kind of time off due to injury, but at the start of 2014, Punk leaves WWE under the worst possible circumstances imaginable, all the details of which are on our CM Punk episode, which absolutely still, you know, all those circumstances of him leaving still are true to this day, including him receiving his release papers, or, you know, being fired or whatever it was on his wedding day. So they had a really fucking bad parting. AJ was with the company for a full year and a quarter after that fact.
Wow.
And she alludes to a little bit in the book. She's like, oh, you know, and this is kind of more when she's summing up. Like, she's kind of like, oh, I kind of felt like I was a little bit caught between them at some points.
No shit.
But, like, yeah, that's fucking insane. Because, like, he's an angry dude at that point in time. And you know that when she's away on the road and he's knocking around that house dealing with, you know, the lawsuit, the fallout of the Art of Wrestling podcast, then the fucking lawsuit against Cabana. Like, geez, like, talk about a tough couple of years. Like, you know, whatever you want to say about him now, if you don't like him now, I totally understand that and all that. But, like, at least he's in a fucking better spot than he was back then. And that's a company that was, like, when it was trying to be vindictive, certainly was. They claimed they weren't trying to be vindictive with Punk at the time, and Jesus Christ, were they ever. Like, it was her wedding day too.
Yeah.
And that's really fucking miserable and sad. And she kind of grit her teeth and got on with it, you know? I don't think she gets the praise or the credit for doing that, of being like, you know, there's being a company gal or whatever it is, and then there's like, you know, still keeping, like, she didn't get buried or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of the segments we watched from 2014 where there's pervasive CM Punk chants during her angles and her matches. And I don't think that's as nice a thing for her as maybe the fans who were chanting it think it is. So she ended up kind of being like kind of an extension of his malaise with the company. You know, there was like, I think when we saw some of the later stuff from her last few months, it was very much like, oh yeah, she's the girl who they chant CM Punk at. I think that kind of sucks that was how her career wound down with WWE. Now, in terms of passing the torch and all that, she did get to have a few little, you know, brief moments of that. I actually had forgotten about this. Someone had tweeted, and I saw it earlier, which was she's the reason why Bayley got the hugger gimmick originally.
What? Didn't know
one of
this.
the very first appearances of Bayley in NXT, and they had AJ show up. AJ did like 1 or 2 matches in NXT when it was kind of starting off. And Bayley, of course, being the fangirl, was like, oh my God, it's AJ Lee. And she hugs AJ and like won't let go of her. And AJ's like, this girl's creepy and all that. And that kind of spiraled into Bayley being, you know, the hugging gimmick and all that.
That's always been one of my favorite face gimmicks.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, that's one of the things that made you a fan. Like,
yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
So I think that was really cool. But I think one of the main things they decided to do was use AJ and her kind of strong character as a means to introduce Paige.
Right.
And get Paige over, because Paige was kind of the first like standout from NXT when it was relaunched into a developmental show as opposed to a chocolate eating contest or whatever it was. So I think they do a storyline with AJ where she beats every single woman in the division at WrestleMania.
Oh my god!
Which for her was like, that's like, it's kind of a throwaway, silly every woman in the ring for 2 seconds at a time match. But she said it was really important to her because she went to WrestleMania 20 with her dad, and at WrestleMania 20, like her dad, pulled together every fucking penny and dollar that he had. You had to physically queue up outside of MSG.
Yeah. She said it took them over 8 hours
Yeah.
of queuing in the hot sun.
And then he like queues up and it's like, what's the best ticket I can get for this amount of money? And it was like, $250 he had for 2 tickets. And they get into the arena on the night and like, it's pretty high up. The seats are okay.
It's a great, Dad.
Great.
Yeah.
It's great. And then like an usher is like, no, there's actually a whole other
Way
secret
up
bowl
there.
up above.
Yeah.
And like they're so minuscule and the dad's like, all upset, starting to cry.
So sorry.
He's
Yeah.
like, don't worry, because I'm going to fucking be at WrestleMania one day, Dad. Don't worry. And I think it's pretty cool that 10 years later at WrestleMania 30, she defends her title in the women's match. That is really cool. So I think we have to understand as fans sometimes that the moments that are important to wrestlers aren't necessarily the ones that we say are the most important ones as fans or whatever. But the very next night, she's literally like, I beat everyone, there's no one left. Paige debuts and immediately beats her to win the championship. Now, there's some parallels, I guess, between like Paige and AJ in many respects, as being, again, like a more of a
alternative.
Yeah, and I think Paige was very much more of an obvious on the tin. Look, it's a goth girl. Like
Yeah.
she's on screen, just like you at home, right, goth girl? I don't think though that Paige necessarily hit the ground running in the same way that AJ did.
She's not as good.
But she's
Like-
untested, I think, in many
Yeah.
respects at that point.
But AJ is like, she's got that X factor.
Yeah.
You can just see, even from like a photograph, you can tell she is like dazzlingly sharp.
I'd argue that Paige does as well.
Paige is a great look,
But it
and
takes
Paige is
more-
a pretty good wrestler.
Yeah.
But she's not got that shiny, complete package, really good at everything.
Now, I think they did in the best of their ability. I think they tried to, because I think they know at this point that AJ's probably going to be moving on, before long.
Yeah.
So they do kind of do this storyline with her, where it's kind of like Paige wins the title off of her, then they kind of immediately turn Paige heel, which I think is not a great idea, really.
Right.
Like to have her be that, and then the idea of them being frenemies brings us to our final match, which is from SummerSlam 2014. As AJ took on Paige for the Divas Championship once again. I think Paige is another one of those women who, she's like, anti-diva and all that, but the Divas Championship is what I associate with her more than anything. Let's bring it back, I want to know your thoughts on this, because when CM Punk went to AEW, the immediate thing that everyone was buzzing about was, oh my God, AEW needs more women in it. It's, I think common criticism
Absolutely,
of AEW.
yeah.
Those early years really
Yeah,
struggled with the women's wrestling. And I think we've talked about this, Joe, which is that there's no small coincidence that AEW's fortunes turning around in the last 2 years in particular are directly related to the women's division getting way better and more time and more talent in there. But I want to know your thought. What if AJ went over to AEW with CM Punk, as everyone's like, it's obviously what's going to happen. People would ask questions at the press conferences and stuff like that. Now, Meltdown and Muffins notwithstanding, do you think she would have been a good fit in there?
I mean, I'm jumping ahead a bit here.
I
but
look
like,
at Paige here and think of Paige and AEW and how badly that went,
I personally, from what I've seen of her return, I don't think she's got the in-ring ability anymore.
That's a harsh.
It's harsh, but AEW is the in-ring company. It's all about that work rate in those matches. And the stuff I've seen of her since she's come back, she can't do some of the moves that she used to be able to do. And the standard has gotten higher
and I
since
think
then.
Paige hit a bit of a wall in AEW with that exact reason, which was, she hadn't been able to wrestle for so long that when she was told she could come back and wrestle, it was like, oh, great, awesome.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, it's not like riding a bike or anything like that. You do need to, and she's since admitted, she's like, I didn't really I don't think I trained as hard as I should have or put the work in that I should have
because
for the standard that was there.
You have to do that anyway, so hard, even in WWE. But I think in AEW, it's 10 times the work rate. Like, it's just way harder.
But I'm really happy that Paige is back in WWE, not because
it's a much better fit.
Yeah, and not because I'm like, I can't wait to see Paige and Brie Bella on SmackDown. It's more because I know that it was upsetting for her fans to see her in AEW not getting on well, whereas I think people just want to hear her music and pretend it's 2013 again, and
Yeah.
she looks like she did in 2013. You know,
She does good character work as well,
For
which
sure,
is
yeah,
way
yeah.
more of a thing in WBE than AEW.
She's a better fit for sure, and I think her and Nikki are definitely angling to get Total Divas back before long.
Bring it back.
Now, what is wild about this match, Joe, is that despite it being the two women who were like tearing down the old Divas division and all the old things it meant to be a woman in WWE, there's a lot of like hair pulling and I guess extension removal in this match.
I was wondering if that was an accident.
I don't know. They both did it to each other, so.
Yeah, they go for like Paige does a bit headbutt, but the headbutt makes no contact, so it's like hair attacking hair.
Yeah, it's a bit yeah.
And pulls out an extension. I feel this happened all the time back then, though. Like,
yeah,
extensions were always flying. I don't know what they did differently now, but you don't see it much these days.
Better glue, I'm assuming, you know. But it is funny to see, like, I think with AJ, they're expecting to get the same magic they got with AJ kind of quite quickly. And I think you have to realize is like she is a super young, super untested talent. I think she is in a little bit over her head here, because when she is kind of on offense, I think they lose a little bit of the crowd reaction and whatnot. And again, to come back to this point where we're like, you know, nearly 2 years after the we're a long way from that Caitlyn match at Payback, and now we're back in a match that feels like smaller in scope, smaller in scale, and it feels like they've roasted chicken, they want to eat the skin. They don't want to kind of get into grips with the meat of the matter here, you know, because it feels like you can't just debut a flashy character and expect it to work. I think people liked Caitlyn and AJ because there was a proper story there, as opposed to, like, there's a lot of kind of like quite sexualized stuff in this match.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of kind of crawling on top of each other and hugging each other close. And it's like, well, what are you trying to do here? Be like, what? Is she going to leave CM Punk and become a lesbian? Is that the gimmick? Are we going to stop chanting CM Punk if she's a lesbian? Is that what you want to happen? So I was kind of like, I was excited to see this match because I remember it being kind of a big deal at the time, but I was obviously quite let down during this one.
Yeah, me too. No,
you know,
it was not great, and there was a lot of sloppy moments as well. Like, even
you could tell AJ was hurting here.
Oh god, yeah. You can see the
tape on the back.
On her back. Yeah.
She dove to the outside. And it looked like it was maybe once to the well a bit times too many. But when you work that style and you are that size, it's like, yeah, please bear that in mind. I think you know
her transition into the Black Widow is already not good.
Yeah, it's slowing down a bit.
To be fair, I don't know if that's on her or if that's on Paige, but either way, it doesn't. It looks like it does now. It looks cumbersome.
That Rampage DDT at the end, right on her head, was like,
oh
good.
God,
that's a scary looking maneuver.
Yeah.
Have you got a rating for that match for us, Joe?
I didn't love it. I gave it 2 stars.
Yeah. So Paige wins, and I think they do, like, I think we reviewed the match for the Bella Twins episode where they kind of teamed up again, you know, the following WrestleMania. But I think the next night AJ did like a 6-woman tag, and then that was it. She's like, I'm retired, that's all. And it kind of felt like it was an underwhelming end for her in many respects, because that was the WrestleMania then that had like hey, we're going to bring back the women's championship, and you know we're going to bring up all these women from NXT, and we're going to start this and you know, don't get me wrong, there was a long road after that before women's wrestling got the proper focus. That early start was a bit janky, but it's so weird that someone who was so instrumental in opening those doors kind of like
vanished,
took the Irishman's exit, to use a derogatory phrase at my own expense. She kind of just slipped away. And I think people always assumed, she'll be back in a year or two. Or maybe when Punk comes back, she'll come back.
Why did she choose to retire?
Because 2 things. One, her back and neck issues.
It was really that
bad. But secondly, and again, she's went into this in some of her advocacy work since the fact, her mental health was really bad.
Really?
Now, I'm not saying this is what she said. This is just my viewing of it, which is being on the road for a year with a hurt neck and a hurt back, and going on with this company that is suing
fighting
your husband, and then you come home and that is the world that you guys are in. Like, bipolar or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember stressful times in my life, and they were 1/1000th as stressful as that. And her mental health really did suffer afterwards. You know, and I think she admitted as much recently that coming back, she said as much recently that like kind of not having time to process when she was 19, that diagnosis, and then hitting the ground running and then skyrocketing. There's all this stuff is happening, new shows, week on week, new matches, new ideas. I don't think she had a time to kind of take a pause and breathe. And when she did, I think she realized she wanted a lot more time to breathe. But I also do wonder, like, you'll never know how much it was tied to CM Punk. He, like, if she came back to wrestling and he didn't, it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But if he came back to wrestling and she didn't, it was kind of like, well, when's she going to come back? Because he's back. So I kind of feel bad for her in that sense. But if she needed that time mentally and physically to get healthy, then yeah, I guess she needed it.
It's just that the length of time it took for her to come back, and the fact that she did come back at all just after he was welcomed back in the... I don't know.
You say just after. It was 3 years after he came back.
Really? God, it felt so...
I know, yeah. Those last 3 years have been a bit of a haze.
I'm old, that's why.
But yeah, it's one of those wrestling kind of absences that at the time everyone's like, okay, yeah, but you'll be back. And then she didn't come back. And then I think as she was gone, you had, here's Becky Lynch, here's Charlotte, here's Bayley and Sasha at NXT TakeOver, here's Asuka, here's all these incredible women in NXT having like matches of the year, never mind women's matches of the year. And then here we have bringing that over into the main roster, main eventing shows, main eventing of WrestleMania, all this stuff that happened, year on year, even when the quality was a bit up and down and you still had some bad decisions. The chart was going up in terms of the quality and the pay and all that stuff that it's so funny to think that, she did that tweet and she's literally like a month or two later, she's gone.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years after that, it's actually, that pay is happening. But it's not just like equality of pay or opportunities in main events or longer matches. AJ was never there when they were doing like ladder matches, TLC, Royal Rumble,
It's night and day.
Cage matches. Like you go back on our Patreon, those WWE reviews that started around the time of this revolution, and we were like, oh my god, it's the first Hell in a Cell with women, it's the first whatever match type with women, and she missed all of that. And it's weird to be that kind of pioneer figure and not actually be here when it all starts.
I wonder if
I can understand why there's some people then who are like, oh no, she's not as good as all that because she wasn't actually here when all that stuff happened.
Yeah, I do wonder if she'd stuck around, if her legacy would have been damaged by it.
They would have had her putting over Becky and Charlotte and all the others.
I just wonder with her injuries if she'd have been able to keep up, or if it would have tarnished her own reputation.
It's one of the rare cases, Joe, of someone in wrestling going, you know what? I don't think my mental health is right for this place. I'm just going to take my big pile of money and go off and do the things I love.
I do wonder if she was ever sitting at home watching, because obviously she's a huge fan. I doubt that went away. But I wonder if she ever sat at home watching the women do like Hell in a Cell and going, God, I wish I got to do that.
But like, look at some of the things she did when she was gone, and still does. She wrote for all the comic series that she loved growing up. She's written anime, she's done movies, TVs. She actually got back involved in women's wrestling briefly. She did some production work for the WOW, which is a spin-off of Glow from back in the day. She has done loads of advocacy work for mental health support and helping young people with mental health or Latino women with mental health, like, all these very specific, very helpful things. And if you hear her talk about that, I don't want to say she doesn't give a shit about wrestling, but I think, as we said at the start, she didn't get into it because wrestling was the only thing ever.
Yeah, true.
She was a polymath when it came to all sorts of other interests, and she pursued them. Whereas with Punk, he did do all those other things. He did his MMA, and he did his comic writing, and he did his acting and stuff like that. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, he knew he was only ever going to truly be fulfilled through wrestling. And that brings me back to her return then. Because I feel like her return, electric reactions when she came back and all that. The matches, there were some of them I really enjoyed. There were some of them that I was kind of underwhelmed by. But by having her kind of come back and then go away for 3 months and then come back again, it felt like every time there was a little bit less of a special factor to it. To the point where I'm kind of glad that she's gone on a break again.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if we don't see her until next year's Royal Rumble, that's probably not the worst thing in the world. But it didn't live up to a lot of fans' expectations.
I think because they didn't really utilise her ability to act. Her character work has really always been something really special about her.
And I just didn't get on with her and Becky going back and forth.
No,
it didn't work for me.
But
yeah.
everything Becky Lynch touches, I'm like, ugh, no.
No.
I would have loved to have seen them do more with her and Punk as like a storyline.
Yeah.
Maybe like, you know, stuff about like their marriage, not necessarily being on the rocks, but like, you know, maybe they could have like fallings out and stuff, or maybe they I know they did a bit of the teaming up with them versus Seth and Becky, but it felt very much like that stereotypical writer's room, like, you're the heel team, we're the face team.
You don't
Let's
need to
fight.
overcomplicate it. You don't need a story. It's just here she is.
Can we maybe give that a bit more meat?
I don't want to say that like I feel like if she never wrestled another match now, I don't think she'd be like, oh no, I got to do this. I have all these dream matches. Like, I was shocked. We watched a couple of interviews with her from the last kind of 6 months to a year, and man, she's kind of like really humble. She's really like, I don't think she's over it, but like I think she did this return more for fans and maybe for other people than like she was like, I gotta do it. I need to do this.
I think she did it partly for Punk.
I think as well. And you know, I'm really happy for them that they got to have all those moments together.
It was, I will
and it's
say,
catharsis for fans who wanted that for so long, you know?
When she came back and they embraced in the ring,
it was really cute.
It was really, really cute. It's so nice to see them finally be able to be an on-screen couple while they're actually in a non-screen, like they're actually in a relationship in real life.
But it's wild that it was another one of these moments with WWE, even under the new ownership and the new vision and all that stuff, that they came to you as a fan and they were like, look at this thing that we're all nostalgic for. And you were kind of like, do
you want to tell me or show me anything about that?
And I was like, you know what, let's get into the weeds. Let's go back to 2012 or whatever it was and actually watch the stuff, because it's fucking great. Like, but I still feel like if you were a fan, the only exposure of AJ Lee you got was that return. I'm happy you got to see a couple of fun matches, but also I'm a little bit like, I think what made her really special wasn't there on that return.
Yeah.
But if you are one of those fans who she meant so much to you, I think it was exactly what you wanted.
Quite healing.
And hearing her talk about like how she's had fans who she's been speaking to for like 15 years.
Yeah, really loyal fans.
Like, that's really
nice.
fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I think for her to be as open as she has been about mental health, that's like, it's such an outlier in wrestling. Now, am I a big fan of the whole crazy is my superpower type of branding stuff? Me personally, not really. And not because I think that crazy is an offensive word or anything like that. I know some people do find that distasteful. That's not me. But I kind of feel like it's almost doing her work on herself and her advocacy a little bit of a disservice by reducing it to kind of a bit of a buzzword.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
That's just me, like, you know. But where do you think the future is for her? What's her legacy? Does she stand up in your mind as like one of the all-time greats? Or was she lightning in a bottle? Because I kind of feel like fans don't want her to be held up as being this incredible wrestler when there's so many better wrestlers that are out now. And also, they don't want her just to be this kind of nostalgia thing. I don't know.
Do you know what she reminds me of, actually? Is China. In that China also had a very short in-ring career.
And a one-of-a-kind type of a thing.
Yeah, and probably wouldn't. If she'd hung around, I doubt she would have stayed to the same standard that has now risen up to meet that.
Yeah.
But she still is such an important part of wrestling overall, but women's wrestling in particular. And
like, none of that stuff that's happened, I swear, like, none of that stuff with the women would have happened in either company, by the way.
Because no other woman's going to be brave enough to stand up to Stephanie McMahon on Twitter, of all places, and go, you know what, put your money where your mouth is. Like,
there's a butterfly effect with her. I think
absolutely.
She is one of, even if you don't like her as a wrestler in ring, I think she's one of the most consequential figures, men or women, in wrestling in the last 15 years. Like, honestly, I think like she, and I extend that to Bryan and Punk and the women's division. And I really think without her, women's wrestling and wrestling as a whole is in a different place, you know? And I think that TKO are intriguing in how they handle legacy acts like this. Because Vince McMahon would have happily had her come out and just wave or be in a backstage segment or whatever it is. Whereas TKO now are about, like, if you have an act like that, you make money, pay-per-views, big ticket items, big ticket events. She still feels like a really weird fit for this company. I think she feels like a weirder fit for this company now than she did back then, even though she was the obvious bad fit or different fit for the company. Seeing her talk about, you know, child poverty with Stephanie McMahon.
I know.
And I honestly, I was like, fucking more power to you, because I don't even think this EJ who's interviewing you realizes what you're saying to her, and what, like, the role that her family and her mother literally plays in that. So she's brave to a fault, I think, you know? Do you want to see her wrestle again, or would you happy call it a career after her WrestleMania match with Becky?
I would love to see her wrestle again, provided she was able to get the time in the ring to practice. I think there's too many returns now, which is all about moments and spots.
Yeah.
And that's not, it's just my taste. I don't care about that so much as I care about a good match.
Yeah.
I would rather them take longer and put the work in. And it's easy for me to say, sitting on my fat ass at home. I don't have to spend all those hours in the gym. But, like, I would prefer that.
She's not aged, by the way, as well.
No, she's not aged at all.
Good Lord.
No. But, yeah, I think she is... For me, it seems as though she struggles a little bit in ring at the moment. Yeah. And I don't know if that's to do with her injuries, or if that's to do with her maybe not having the time in the ring over the last, she's been out of the business for a long time. Yeah. I don't know which it is.
There's still little, like, final moments I think you can get it from her, I think.
So, yeah, if she was going to come back and stay back, I would rather them all invest in that side of things.
At the very least, Joe, so we can hear that theme song a few more times.
Oh my God, it's so good.
If ever there was an episode that was finally going to get the NWO theme out of Joe's head, it's this one. Hell yeah. Probably one of the greatest of all time, let me just say, right?
Onion loves it too.
Well, let's get into some of your tweets, your Patreon comments, your Facebook posts, and your blue skies about the one and only AJ Lee. Okay, it's time to have a look at some of your thoughts from Patreon, patreon.com/howtowrestling, all about AJ Lee. And I should point out as well, Joe, in between the bit where we recorded the first bit and this bit, as if summoned by our positive chat, Caitlin has actually been doing the interview rounds.
Are you serious?
Talking about everything from the fact that it was John Cena who chewed her and AJ Lee out about going long on their match and never do that again.
Of course.
Never do that again.
Great match, though.
Great match, though. But honestly, never do that again, because it was his match they bit into.
Oh.
But she's also been talking about, like, maybe making a comeback, all that jazz.
Yay.
So who's to say?
That would be great.
It would, of course, only be a obvious awful sense if she returns just as AJ Lee is going on another lengthy sabbatical, like passing ships in the night. But very interested to go through some of these thoughts that people have had about AJ Lee.
First up, from Caesar161. As someone who stopped watching wrestling before AJ debuted and started watching again after she left, I'd always heard about how she was the bright spot during a terrible era. And while it does seem that she stood above the pack during the Divas era, her return really has shown a spotlight on just how much the women's division has improved in every aspect since then, and she feels like a little bit of a relic. Her ring work feels a step behind most of the current roster, and her promos feel very much stuck in the 2010s.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to navigate. And I think, honestly, your first reaction to AJ, I was kind of a little bit horrified. I was like, oh no, I thought she'd love AJ Lee.
She made a really weird we haven't talked about the promo yet.
Shankovich. Or Shanka Chick, excuse me.
Shanka Chick, yeah. Which I hated so much. I thought it was the most cringe thing you could say.
Yeah.
But then in her book, she does mention stabbing a man. So.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it was a case of WWE trying to have their cake and eat it, where it's like here is a nostalgia actor, a throwback, and someone who was kind of really important to women's wrestling getting to that next level. But it's kind of hard to embrace that fact without also admitting and embracing that, like, women's wrestling was kind of like
a bit hokey
and not on that same level, and as long as you have, like, the likes of Michelle McCool going out on podcasts saying that she revolutionized women's wrestling, it feels like as long as you have the opportunity to speak as a woman in WWE with a bit of power behind you, you can kind of make any old claim.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of women, like, I think that you're not even familiar with yet, like maybe like Beth Phoenix and Victoria and stuff like that, who I think have just as much a claim to do that.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like they don't know what to do when trying to embrace talking about AJ Lee, like help make women's wrestling better, but then also at the same time, like, holding up Trish Stratus as, like, the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And both can be true, but you have to be a little bit more honest with the audience than I think anyone is comfortable being, really.
Next, from Adam Sleverson. I remember absolutely adoring her as an on-screen character on Raw in her storylines with Daniel Bryan, Kane, John Cena, and as a general manager. I definitely had reservations about her storylines playing into unfortunate tropes about women, and especially neurodivergent women, but AJ was funny, charismatic, and a good actor. She had such fire that her segments were consistently the best thing on Raw, even if they made me feel a bit icky if I thought about them too hard. I had stopped watching by the time she went for the Divas title, so I was never super familiar with her in-ring work. That said, I have been loving her return. The story with Becky has been consistently fun, and I have loved every single one of her promos.
Well, I think with her, like, I don't know if this is a fair summation, but for me at least, the greatest strength is the storylines, the interplay, the character work, and
During
all
her
that.
original run.
Yeah, that whole like run where and it kind of went from like Bryan to Punk to Cena to Ziggler, all that. I think all that was like just so entertaining to watch. And I think for a lot of folks, maybe like the wrestling being good falls more into the category of like pleasant surprise than go out of your way like to see it. Because I think other than the Caitlyn match, I think that is a phenomenal match. Like, yeah,
like in the time period, it is genuinely like
shockingly above and beyond. Like,
but even if you don't think about it like that, it stands up.
It still holds up. With regards to like a lot of the kind of the going on kind of tropes about neurodivergence and things like that.
I totally get what their point is, because I agree. And when we were kind of first reading about it in her book, I was like shocked that she said no to the kind of the kissing leprechauns and flying on unicorns and shit like that. But she said yes to this. Because like, as far as I'm concerned, like they're both pretty shoddy representations of neurodivergency. But like it's her representing her own mental illness. So like,
I mean, I was expecting it to have aged a lot worse than it did. That's not necessarily, when talking about old WWE stuff, the greatest ringing endorsement. And I think as well, it's always worth bearing in mind that this is someone who skyrocketed to like unfathomable superstardom.
Yeah.
Out of, she was only in her very early 20s. And I think, for someone who was kind of rationalizing it as she went along, I don't think she's done like some sort of a horrible disservice to her community or to younger. I think she is still, even with some of it aged badly, like a tremendous role model. Because if you are into AJ or any of the things that touched upon those storylines, like you do not have to go far to see the insane amount of advocacy. And I kind of
no, for sure.
And like it's one thing to talk the talk, but like this is someone who is like that is front and center to her whole life now. And if anything is to be said positive about the recent WWE return, she has once again used that to springboard. Like she's doing loads of appearances on podcasts and stuff, but it's really to talk about mental health, advocacy, where you can like not just kind of here's my experience and then I became famous and everything was great. It's like here's how people in my situation might have barriers to getting mental health help, and actually telling you here the numbers you can ring, the websites you can visit, the people you can talk to. I think that's like fairly admirable. Maybe it's like not the obvious way to get there, but she's done a lot more for that cause than her wacky storylines might have you initially believe.
Because like her wacky storylines make her slightly out as though if you have a mental disorder, you are kind of evil.
Yes, and you'll rise to the top of professional wrestling in record time.
Yeah. Next up from Conrad T. I never really loved her promos because she just seemed to be burying the division to get herself over. I took umbrage with this because Natalya, Beth, and Michelle were better workers than her. In the ring, I found her sloppy, her offense was light and soft, and I didn't think she was as good of a bumper as she should have been given her size.
Oh, I strong disagree there. She has the scoliosis to fucking prove it.
She had a different look, had poise on the mic, and was allowed to show her personality and characterization, but beyond that, I was never a fan.
I kind of feel like the whole like burying the roster thing.
Oh yeah.
I totally like accept that as like that's really shit. I will say at the same time that roster she was burying had infinite more storyline outlets by like Total Divas is by far and away was the focus of those girls. Like I think everything that was happening on Raw and SmackDown and main event was very secondary, and I think being the lone kind of voice of the non-Total Divas, I felt like they could take that in many respects.
They could, yeah. It's definitely an easy, I think, method of getting over at that time period is like knocking down the type of woman that you think is like making wrestling bad. I totally see why it got over.
I think looking back, it feels like they were on the bottom of the heap and she was on the top of the heap, because now we take things like being the champion to be more important.
Well, and legacy as well. Like the Bella Twins don't have nearly the legacy that AJ has.
But I feel like, now that time has went on, like back then it was kind of the opposite of the case. I think the stars were the people who were on the reality show. But
yeah, definitely.
I'm definitely very interested when we finally reach there on Totally Divas on Patreon, if there is going to be a reaction to her calling them all horrible names.
Yeah. Now from Kyle Redding, I loved AJ Lee. From the moment she debuted on NXT, I saw she was different. Her promos then were good, and she brought an authentic personality from the beginning. While I understand where the other commenter was coming from in burying the other women, I think it was mostly frustration that the Total Divas women were getting more opportunities. AJ, to me, felt different from the rest. Obviously, she looked different, with her trademark black hair and thin frame, but the way she carried herself was unique and stood out. Her confidence shined, especially when she was given time. For once, it felt like the women's division mattered in a dreadful period in WWE. We were only a few years from the awfulness of Piggy James, for example, so to see a woman authentically get over with the crowd through her character work rate in the ring, and promo ability was incredible to see. It felt like every man, woman, boy, and especially young girl could see themselves in AJ Lee.
Honestly, I think the most endearing thing about it is, and it's very hard to see this in the current WWE system when it's so kind of controlled, everything from like their time on the indies to how they're brought in, how they're trained. There's so many layers and levels to even then finally get to see someone on television. And I think nowadays it's more like, oh wow, this person got on TV who was over in NXT and over on Evolve, and they managed to not mess it up. Isn't that nice? Whereas AJ was an example of like, we just need a body for this storyline. Errol will chuck her out, and then she gets over, and they give another opportunity, and she gets over more. And going along that journey as a fan of seeing someone naturally get over, and an office that's maybe decided they don't want to do this type of thing, kind of having to take more of a chance. That's, I think, one of the most thrilling things about it. Because, when she first debuts, it's like, it's through gritted teeth they put her on there. It's because they needed bodies for a silly kind of joke reality show that was on as a web series. And to see her that rise and get further and further and further and further is really, really cool as a fan.
Even when she was put with Brian, like, they needed a body to elevate his run, really. And it's just the fact that she did such a good job with that storyline that she managed to, put it over.
It's very rare where you see someone who has a natural rise, and it's not just kind of, I'm getting over and everyone around me is getting squashed and buried.
Yeah.
Like, she got, whatever about the gripes about maybe the other women not, a rising tide didn't lift all the boats as I think she thought it did, but she got a lot of the men over.
Yeah.
And that's and not kind of at the expense of herself.
No.
Because a lot of the stuff that they did with the men, I still think, a lot of people would be like, sorry, what? Kudos to Punk and Brian, etc. Because a lot of lads, I think, would be like, no, I'm not gonna that. No, helps that one of them was in love with her, I guess. But
next up from CF Ricks, when AJ and Caitlyn were putting on decent matches in an era of divas barely getting airtime, it made sense to consider her the best. I never understood how after she left and the standard for WWE women rose beyond her body of work not long after, people still pined for her return.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of people feel sometimes when there's a more appropriate era or a more appropriate place, you kind of feel like, and it can give you this kind of very weird sense of FOMO. The fact that she was not doing anything other than kind of being very tangentially involved in wrestling through producing work for WoW and stuff like that. But I know there's people who have basically spent 3 of the best years of Kevin Owens' career cursing that he wasn't in AEW, where it is obviously okay, it's a better fit. Yeah, he'd be great there. But I feel like kind of people feel like there's a great opportunity was missed. But I'm not so sure with the return. I think it's maybe kind of silenced some of that. I think if she was around for a little bit longer, I think she probably would have gotten more hurt, and also as well, mental health wise, she was struggling. She was really struggling. And I think even as open as she is, I don't think we can still get to grips with how bad a way she was when she left. It was pretty fucking dark, I think.
I think part of the people pining for her to come back is also just, who doesn't love a return?
Yeah, I know. It's the best thing in wrestling, isn't it? Come on,
we
it
all
is.
love it. No matter who it is. Even if it's someone shit, you're like, yeah.
They're back, yeah.
Next up from Mick M90, a lot of her stuff hasn't aged well looking back on the not like other girls kind of deal, but she really wasn't like anyone else on the roster at the time. A trailblazer in her own time and a living legend who isn't even in her 40s yet.
Yeah, I think that's kind of wild because I think she's very quick to be oh, I'm an old lady now. Like, if you just any interview with her
Yeah.
now, she's like, oh, these young whippersnappers. It's like, you're like the same age as like most of them, it seems like.
Now from Saint Chadis. I respect her importance in WWE, but I've never been able to get on board with her promos. Her pipe bomb promos, for instance, are just girl boss patter to the Total Divas cast. The weird lesbian pollen angle they did with Paige sucked, and her matches just don't hold up to me.
I mean, I kind of feel like a lot of what was considered well-meaning kind of slight, as provocative's not the right word, but kind of like, yeah, that kind of, the type of feminism they put on WWE TV, I guess, has aged like milk.
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
And it's funny because of all the stuff that people were like, kind of, oh yeah, like check the, because oftentimes we get people recommending, oh, check this stuff out. It's not like something they've seen recently; it's just something they remember.
Yeah.
And I think the top of the list of something that was recommended that, like, when we watched it, we were both like, was that pipe bombshell promo.
God.
Honestly, I think that was one of the biggest swings and the misses of her career. The upside of it, though, is it did engage a portion of the audience that was ready, willing, and more than able to go to town on social media once the Give Divas a Chance hashtag started trending. But it's weird. I feel a lot of people have conflated those two things.
Yeah.
Like, kind of, oh, she did this amazing thing that kind of got women to be taken seriously. And it's like, well, that kind of was a shitstorm that was kind of ignored for a year.
Yeah.
And then, like, the promo that she did was kind of like, I mean, it's the type of promo that I think that people would have, like, if she did something like that these days, people would not hail it as being a feminist icon, is all I would say. I think now it's kind of viewed as being a bit reductive, if anything.
It's so indicative of lean-in feminism.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Is that like a lean-to and Grounded, which we're playing at the moment?
So I think it's like in 2012, there was this book that came out from like one of the CEOs, forgive me if my details aren't exactly correct, of Facebook.
Okay.
And it was from a woman called, I think her name's Sheryl Sandberg, and her book was called like Lean In. And it literally was, I think it coined the term girl boss.
Oh, I think I've heard of this. Yeah.
And it was at the time, it was like kind of revolutionary, the idea of like, as a woman, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to take opportunities and act like a man, like grab them by the balls.
Yeah.
All this kind of like, very
Parenthesis,
Stephanie.
It's your fault if that whole kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, marginalized
Come on,
person.
girls, we can be men too. And then it's kind of like aged like milk.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can maybe, at the very best, have been trying very, very hard to give it its try view things like that in a positive way, is like maybe inspire people to like do a little bit more of the groundwork or to kind of advance the notion beyond something so kind of shallow, I guess.
I think of it as an important stepping stone to kind of more well thought out intersectional feminism that's maybe come since, even if it has aged like milk. I think it started a few conversations that probably needed to happen. Finally now, from Rainy Day Jules. I wasn't interesting at the time, but I know if I was, I would have adored AJ. She reminds me of Lita in the way that she brought a different aesthetic to what could feel like a monotonous group of the same type of women. Lita being the alt edgy girls and AJ for the tumblery nerdy girls. God, AJ is such a Tumblr girl.
Yeah. I mean, you can see why like a lot of her fans were like big into her, like 2013. Like a lot of gifs rolling around about it. A lot of AJ Lee fanfic, which I'm sure she'd be delighted with, given that she is. I mean, she's a fanfic author extraordinaire.
Yeah, she used it to get into university.
Yeah. So I kind of, what always is just bananas to me, because like when we did the Elite episode, it's like, you know, most girls who would have maybe been into wrestling were probably more into this aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know, the women who were into wrestling weren't all like, you know, bleached blondes, like muscle Barbie girls or whatever it was. It's like, you know, people want to see themselves on the screen. And I think even though the Total Divas had a lot of aspirational kind of like, you all want to be these kind of powerful bandage dress, high heel girls brunching with each other. Majority of the women who were like buying tickets to go see the wrestling show looked like AJ Lee.
Exactly.
Probably could talk for hours about anime with AJ Lee. It's just wild to me that they were separated by like a fucking decade.
Yeah.
How do we keeps forgetting what a lot of its fan bases are into? It's always wild to me. Yeah. Well, folks, that is going to do it for the AJ Lee episode. I want to thank everyone for pitching in and for your patience as we're raising our young little baby onion between episodes. But of course, we are still reviewing all of the pay-per-views, continuing our Total Divas Odyssey, etc. All of that available over on our Patreon page. The show is ad-free and fan-supported at patreon.com/howtowrestling, where we've been going for over a decade now. So if you join now for only $5, you get access to that whole back catalogue, and you get pay-per-view reviews and exclusive content each and every month. And we thank you very much for those of you who support us. Our next episode is one that we're really excited about, slightly intimidated by, but I think at this point we've always had a fan base that has proven itself to be amazing when it comes to these types of episodes. We're heading back to Japan once again, and we're going to deal with probably someone who is one of the most important faces in Japanese wrestling of the last 20 years. Someone who Joe and I only really know through watching Forbidden Door pay-per-views with AEW and seeing them as an extremely fragile older man.
I also know him from viral photos of him in a kitchen wearing an apron.
He's a hunk, Joe.
He's a very hunk, yes.
This podcast started on the concept of hunks, and god damn it if we're not going to continue that tradition. Our next episode is all about Hiroshi Tanahashi. How to Tanahashi is our next episode. The president of the beleaguered New Japan Pro Wrestling, but also someone who has had an extremely storied career, someone who had an iconic retirement, and honestly it felt like the end of several eras all at once when he walked off into the sunset and then became the world's most handsome wrestling executive at the same time. Now, we have seen him here and there. He showed up on the Kenny Omega episode. He's shown up on a few, as I said, of the AEW shows that we've reviewed in the past. But to his absolute importance, the standout matches, what he meant for fans, what his draw was to people, not just in Japan, but all over the world. Because I know we have a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are extremely passionate Tanahashi fans. And as you and I are probably less educated than those folks, we're going to open our hearts and open our hands up and say, if you want everyone else to find out about why this guy is so amazing, please use us as your vessel, as your conduit. How to Tanahashi will be the next episode. We're after iconic matches, storylines, vibes, what this man makes you feel.
Photo shoots
for sure. I know that there's a movie that he did.
What?
My dad is a heel pro wrestler or something like that. I know.
I've heard of that.
And we're definitely gonna be watching that. You know, I think anytime we ventured into Japanese wrestling, be it for Tenryu or Vader or Kenny Omega or Manami Toyota or even Medusa, you know, anytime we've popped over there, we've had an absolute incredible time. We've learned loads of amazing stuff. We've ended up having to translate a load of stuff as well. Finding some of the stuff might be difficult. And obviously, as a man who has a storied and legendary career as he has, I think we have to be selective in picking our matches. But I've heard anytime he steps in the ring with young Okada, it is nothing short of extraordinary.
I'm sure.
We'll be spoiled for choice, Joe, I believe. So, How to Tanahashi, you'll be able to send in your 2 cents on Blue Sky, on Twitter, Facebook, or over at patreon.com/howtowrestling for our next episode about probably one of the most handsome guys you've ever done a How to Wrestling about, I think.
Ooh. I mean, he's definitely up there, but it's quite competitive.
Yeah, it's tough at the top.
We've done some hunks.
Particularly with the wide variety of hunks that we've done as well. But yeah, we're very excited about this episode. It's going to be a lot of research, a lot of work going into it, and we can't wait to get stuck in for Tanahashi, our next episode. But thank you everyone for joining us on the AJ Lee adventure. Well, until next time, we're going to be looking at Tanahashi. It's going to be a goodbye from me, Kevin.
And a goodbye from me, Joe.
And we'll see you next time on How to Wrestling.
See ya.